right, good evening and welcome everyone to the July 8th meeting of the Bennington Select Board. We're in the third floor conference room at the fire facility. My name is Jeannie Jenkins and I have the pleasure of chairing this board, and I'll ask my fellow board members to introduce themselves, starting with Nancy.
Hi, I'm Nancy White.
Hi, good evening, Sarah Perrin.
Hi, I'm Ed Woods.
Good evening, I'm Tom Haley.
Clark Adams.
And I'm Jean Connor.
And I'm going to remind everybody, so apparently it's not just those mics, but it's our mics too that you can't hear, particularly in Cat TV land. So if we can all make sure our mics are on and that we are speaking into the mic, that will be good. All right. So also with us here tonight, we have Stu Hurd, our town manager. We have Jonah Spivak, who is making sure that all the AV works appropriately, and we have Nancy Lively, who takes excellent minutes, and Josh Boucher, who does a great job of filming this for Cat TV, so thank you all. First on the agenda, as always, is the Pledge of Allegiance. Ed, would you lead us in the pledge?
I will.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ed. Tom, do you want to read the vision statement? Do you also want to say anything?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to let folks know I am dealing with some pretty severe lower back pain. So if I appear fidgety in my seat tonight, or I may even have to stand up, I just want everyone to know that I'm not making some sort of protest. I'm just trying to try to deal with that the best I can. So thank you. And the vision statement. Bennington is a welcoming, engaged, inclusive, resilient community where everyone, regardless of identity, shares in our vitality and benefits from an outstanding quality of life.
Thank you very much. All right, next is the consent agenda. We have the minutes of June 24th and July 1st, the warrants, and we don't have any liquor licenses, right?
No, I didn't see that.
Okay. All right, for the purposes of discussion, could I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. That was a tie between Sarah and Ed. Any discussion? I do want to note that we do have the last names of the two individuals from the June 24th meeting, and they have been added to the minutes. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Was that everyone? Nancy, did you vote?
I'm abstaining.
Okay. I'm going to ask from now on, when we say aye, nay, or abstention, that we raise our hands, because it's very, very hard for me to tell the difference at this point. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Any abstentions? Nancy's abstaining. Okay, thank you. All right, on to the next, which is public comment. I want to remind everyone that public comment is for the purposes of sharing information that is useful to all. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. Jean is the timekeeper, and at 30 seconds, there's a handy-dandy sign. All right. We also ask that when you finish speaking, to please sit down. If there are any follow-ups, we'll do that after everyone has spoken. And also, please state your legal name and town of residence. And I think that's it. Okay, so with that, let's start. Mike Bethel, you are up. Can we get the microphone for you?
Can you hear it all right? I think you can hear me all right.
Thanks, Shirley.
That's good. That's staring back at me, person. And when I finish, what if I'm already sitting down? Do I have to then stand up?
I think you get to move back.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Make sure you say that next time. I don't want to get offended. What I'm here for is you talked about the skateboard park last meeting, and I'm not against the skateboard park, but I think if you really want it to be successful, and it's supposed to bring competition eventually when it's built and all, I really do have a big concern. You don't have enough parking out there. And my other big concern is if you don't have enough parking and people are coming in and going out, if there's a competition, you got our firehouse right across the street from it. And you're blocking off Depot, which I don't disagree with, but I think you really need to do, and not with BCRC or any of them organizations that always jump at everything, I think you need to do pay to have an independent study done on that area as to what we can do to alleviate any kind of an emergency if there is competitions or whatever. Because the firemen, you know, they can only do so much. And if cars are coming in and out, they can't just pick up the cars and move them. And I think it would be very detrimental if anything ever happened because of a meet there. And I don't know where else you can put the thing, but I think the parking could be a big problem. And I talked to some people that were surveying it last week, and they kind of agreed. They probably ain't going to give their names, but they agreed. And one of them thought that if you have two entrances, an exit and an entrance, or two entrances to it, it might be better than just the one you're going to have now. Have one at one end and one at the other end. And that might alleviate some of it. But again, I'm no specialist in parking. I mean, I can park this thing pretty good, but this, years of practice. But I think you really need to do an independent, small study from some company and tell them before you get too far into this how big this should be for the safety of not just the people there, but the firemen and the people that, you know, may need emergencies and stuff like that. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Let's see, next up, Debbie Matt on Benmont curbing.
I'll bring my chair. Debbie Matt, Bennington. The new curbing on Benmont Avenue down by where the buses are parked, it looks to me like on that side of the road, the curbing has come out way too far. If you look where the curbing ends and where the line used to be, there's a good distance between there. And I've noticed already that some people have clipped it because there's black rubber marks along the edge of it. And it just looks to me like a hazard waiting to happen there.
Thank you. Jenny Dewar, Festival at the Barn.
Shirley? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Jenny Dewar. I'm here for the Apple Barn in Bennington. I'm going to read some of Sarah's words because they're so beautifully written that I don't want to do them non-justice. So the second annual Blueberry Festival is happening at the Apple Barn on July 20th. That's a week from Saturday. It'll be from 10 to 5. Last year was a huge success. This year we seem to have about 4,000 people interested on the Book of Face, so that's exciting. It's going to be full of all kinds of events, and including, it's the one day that there's free blueberry picking at the barn. Otherwise, you have to pay for it. So, and flourishing blueberries this year. Last year was kind of sad, as we all know, with apples and blueberries and grapes. There will be live music with Hale Mountain. I think they're called the Hale Mountain Pickers, but she wrote Hale Mountain Band. Incredible vendors, including ice cream, varied food trucks, magic acts, face painting, chair massage, balloon making, and more. We have several local artisans and crafters, and we're doing a special. I started this last year, and we're going to bring it into the barn. So we're having a young entrepreneurs section. So we'll have young vendors They have to pay 5% of their take. They have to figure out the math with me to know what they have to pay. And there are some really creative youngsters that are going to be there. So come just to patronize them, if nothing else. There's a Blueberry Bake-Off competition this year. You can show off your baking skills in the first ever Blueberry Bake-Off. Participants must submit their blueberry-themed baked items with enough for 12 judging pieces by 12 p.m. The winner will receive $150, a year's supply of apple cider donuts, and bragging rights. Registration forms are available at the barn or on their website. Again, reminder, I don't work for the Apple Barn, I just work on the festivals. There will be several blueberry-themed delights by the vendors. Family activities, there are going to be several games, a scavenger hunt, a huge bubble area, a corn pit, playground, and crafting areas for the kids. Lots for them to do. Very, very family-oriented and community-oriented, as opposed to just a vendor's fair, you know. The festival will be will be in the back field of the barn. There will be extra parking at the sheriff's office. There will be signage for the parking. And I think that's about it. My weekly market is going well, also on Sundays. Stop by, and there's different vendors every week, so it's not just, you know, if you miss it this week, you might not get the same thing next week. So any questions?
Super. Tell us the date again.
It's July 20th, Saturday, a week from Saturday, 10 to 5. Yeah, and the music will be from 12 to 3. Yep.
Super. Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Lovely. Thank you.
See you there.
All right. Anybody that I missed? All right. Now, next up, then, is the Better Bennington Corporation Work Plan and Budget. Jeannie, are you, yep. You're up? Oh, I see. Okay, you'll introduce everybody.
We come with a crowd.
Yeah, I see that.
My name is Susan Plaisance. I'm the president of the BBC, Better Bennington Corporation, and we're here to present our annual report. Well, I'm going to stand by. I'm going to clap. I'm going to introduce Jeannie Mintroni, who will be presenting the report. And
We know how much I love to do that.
and Jessica White, who, if you haven't met Jess,
Yes.
stop in the BBC. Jess and I go way back. Jess used to babysit for my kids. That's how far back we go. So, welcome Jess to the BBC, and I'll let them at it. Oh, and Bill Clark, of course, is here. He's always around.
What's going on? What's going on? Sorry, everybody. We've been having technical difficulties, and my whole screen's showing up there.
That's the video version. You want to open up the camera version.
Oh, I didn't log into that because I don't have the web. All right, this is going much too fast. Hold on one moment, everybody. I'm sorry. Let's see.
That's why I'm not doing it.
Presentation.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, I think this is it now. Oops. It's like has a mind of its own. Okay, full screen. It's spinning on me. Did you see it? Okay, so I don't know what's going on here. Do you want to try to work on it while I talk?
From the video,
Yes, please. That would be great.
it will be a little awkward because I'll have to pause it as best I can.
Okay, thank you. One of my files got corrupted, and then one didn't, and one does its own thing, so thank you. Okay, so thank you for having us here today and for being able to present our 24-25 budget. I am not going to read all these slides, do not worry.
Let me know when you want to advance, it just might be a couple second delay as the video catches up.
Thumbs up, go ahead. So, let's see, okay. So our mission, vision, and diversity and inclusion statements are in your packets, but they're also available on the website. If you have any questions, please let us know. I am not going to read it all to you. Next. Thanks. One thing I want to mention is how proud we are to be the designated downtown visitor center. Jess can tell you that we actually are excited when visitors come in and are asking us questions. I feel that our enthusiasm can be infectious to them and make them want to come back and go explore things that they weren't even coming here to do. So a big thank you to Jess for having that same enthusiasm, and our docents that volunteer their time. Also, take a peek at the moose. It's still a work in progress, but up close to it, you probably can't see it there, there is a whole design of downtown on both sides. Ahmed is doing it, and it's really, really wonderful. I can't wait for it to be done so it's really visible. Also, the kiosk, we make sure that we rotate other nonprofits and events in and out of there, and ours as well. Bill does a wonderful job keeping it clean and organized. Okay, so the BBC board members dedicate countless hours and effort to making the BBC and our community shine. All of their work is volunteer time, and some of them have been on the board for many years, so countless hours. I would like to personally thank each of them because they've really helped me get through figuring out the job. Our staff, Susan introduced everybody. I do have quotes here. Do you want to read yours? Do you need glasses?
No, you're good.
Okay, you can read it?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Jess is going to read hers.
All right.
Billy, you want to read yours? Okay.
I have thoroughly enjoyed my time with the Better Bennington Corporation. Every day, I take pleasure in welcoming visitors, showcasing the charm of our community, bolstering the vitality of our downtown small businesses, and assisting and hosting signature events that bring our community together.
Bill doesn't want to read his, so I'd pretend I'm Bill. I find great satisfaction in working for the BBC. It fills me with pride to contribute to keeping our downtown community clean, organized, and bustling with activity. Knowing that my efforts positively impact both visitors and locals brings me immense happiness. And I will tell you that is so true, because Bill gets excited when he comes back and he has cleaned downtown and he knows it's looking good. And it makes us feel good also. So I wrote, I'm humbled and thrilled to be the director at Bennington Better Corporation. This role allows me to give back to a community I love and admire, recognizing the strengths and challenges that it has. Growing up in Bennington and Pownell, I ventured out after high school, attended college, and began my career in Florida. After decades of travel and professional experiences, I appreciate Bennington as a hidden gem in Vermont. Working with the BBC to support this vibrant community is not just a job, it's a deeply rewarding journey. So that's it on staff. We have an org chart so you can kind of see the flow of everything, but you probably already know that. We, of course, follow this, but there's a lot of overlap within the committees, especially design now and downtown vitality. Okay, next. Now we're kind of going on to about us being one of the 24 designated downtowns in the state of Vermont. We meet monthly to discuss the future, what we are doing, and what we can do together. And going forward, we are each putting in a certain amount of money to collaborate and market the 24 downtowns as a whole, so that possibly tourists will come and be hitting all these towns because they will hear about all of them in one marketing piece. We all meet the obligations of being a member of the Main Street America. The BBC is honored to be an affiliate. This program opens up opportunities for the businesses of downtown and the municipality. There's lots there that it shows what it opens up as far as credits and grants and funding, and it's really, we should be really proud of our town Main Street America has a 4-point approach that we all follow for downtown revitalization, and that's where our committees come in with design, downtown vitality, which used to be called economic vitality, promotions, and what we call the org committee. And the 4 committees are what keeps us in line with the need to accomplish, as well as keeping us aligned with the Main Street America program. This slide is really just to give you an overview. The select board all has, they all have a work plan for each committee, but this is just bits and pieces of it because I don't think you could have read it up there anyway. The committee chairs and members are tasked annually with developing a plan for the fiscal year. There may be some crossover from committee to committee, and things are often added or changed, but the task at hand always remains a priority. This is a sampling of different areas of each committee: design, downtown vitality, promotions, and org. So we just got our 24 certificate, which is really, it's exciting because, you know, we could lose this if we didn't meet what we needed to do. So meeting the needs for this national accreditation is essential and necessary for the BBC to maintain a broad-based community commitment, inclusive leadership and organizational capacity, diverse and sustainable funding, strategy-driven programming, preservation-based economic development, and demonstrated impact and result. Again, really important. Don't miss it.
Did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, would you rather have all questions at the end or?
Yeah.
Okay.
If that's okay.
That's fine.
Okay. You don't want to derail me. See what happened in the beginning?
It's a simple question, but I totally get it.
You can ask if it's simple.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious if you could rattle off like 5 of the other designated downtowns in the state.
Bellows Falls, which we absolutely love. Shannon and I were just there for a conference. It was amazing. So maybe I am on the spot now.
That's okay.
Okay, Burlington. Wilmington.
St. Johnsbury.
St. Johnsbury. See, she's been studying. Give me another one.
Bellows Falls.
That's enough. I just wanted to get a sense of it.
So what's great about it is it really could become like this travel fun map that we could create where people do go to each of these designated towns. Of course, they're going to hit other ones along the way. But with a joint marketing program, it's going to be affordable for us to each do because we're sharing that cost. And they're all great towns. And if you haven't been to Bellows Falls, I am promoting it because it was absolutely wonderful. Not an empty storefront, and even if there was one, it didn't look empty because of what they did in the windows with like colored shutters, and it was just really, really nice. So together we can help our community thrive and create unforgettable experiences for our visitors, ensuring they can't wait to return. And that is what it's all about here. I mean, it's not just about our community. We want people to come here because it impacts so much in the economy. So we're all kind of an ambassador for our own town. So being positive, informed, and pleasant to visitors and one another is important. And as I said earlier, enthusiasm can be contagious. Next, please. We cannot thank our volunteers enough. It is all appreciated and needed, whether it's 1 hour or 20 hours a year. Please consider joining us as a docent, event volunteer, or in some other capacity you are comfortable with. I mean, we even look for people to paint, build deer. You never know what we're going to be up to. So next, please. Arts, events, networking, and more. It kind of speaks to itself. We've added some things, we've enhanced what we do at some of them, and we've also created a network experience for our downtown merchants and business owners, I should say, which I think is really catching on. It's bi-monthly right now, and it gives them a chance to see each other because they don't normally. They go to work and they work in their shop all day and they go home. And this is getting them out before they open and getting to talk to one another. And we have businesses host it. The next one's in August, and it will be the Angry Egg 2 and Abuelas co-hosting. We strive to host free, family-oriented, and art-inspired events that engage our community and attract visitors from afar. The new networking series for downtown businesses has been well received. You will see more about these events soon. Since we never charge our attendees, our budget is crucial to our ability to continue all that we do. Next. Now the good stuff. So I know many people probably come up here and ask for a really big increase. You're probably going to laugh at ours, but we are basically looking at $2,463, which does not impact the community as a whole. It's really the business portion of a building's use in downtown. And that is only basically a 30% portion. If they live have 2 apartments upstairs or live upstairs and have a rental downstairs. So it's very small. Basically on $2,600, I think it came out to, I'm hoping I'm going to get this right, I think it was $2.10. So it's $7 per 100,000 of the business portion of the building. So we are asking only for $2,463, which basically comes to $2.10 increase to the downtown business, or not businesses, but the landlords of the buildings. The only reason that we're even asking for that is, as everybody knows, everything has gone up. So when we do an event, everything's more expensive. We don't charge anybody, so we're not recouping it that way. We are bringing money in through grants, sponsorships, and the DID. And we're grateful for that. Let's see, so the overall DID portion is $96,956, which is where the green goes across. This is the whole budget. I also based what the increase we're asking for on the fact that we thought 23-24 was going to have a projected of $203,993. Well, there were some changes at the BBC, and it ended up being drastically less. In fact, it was 22,000, I have it written here somewhere, less. So I can't ask for a big increase when we actually spent so much less. This also shows the Vibrancy Fund, which we're still in an application process for. It's not a guarantee. So when it's written here, it doesn't mean we are definitely getting it. I believe we will, and we did get last year's, but it's not guaranteed yet for 25. And all of that money goes to things that aren't necessarily in this budget. Like we were able to do 2 art installations that you're probably seeing pop up on the Riverwalk, and the other one is about to be going up, that we wouldn't have been able to do because we didn't have the budget for that. So it's really wonderful that it's through the governor's budget that this amount is available for each of the designated downtowns. But there are a lot of stipulations, a lot of requirements, and a lot of proof of where the money gets spent. On here, it shows 24,000 because I took that 1,000 off the top because we are all giving that 1,000.
Is there a way to use a
pointer?
Yeah.
No, would you like to be Vanna? Do you want to go be Vanna? Sure. Okay, Vanna's going to go over. I don't have a pointer. Do you have a pointer?
I totally.
She might be off the hook then. Yeah, perfect.
Jeannie,
yes.
Also,
we're also thinking, before you leave this page, I think we all have questions.
Okay, all right, that's good. So why don't you point out the DID funding, go up a couple, yep. So that is what we're asking for 24-25. If you go over to what the projected and actual were, which is straight over, it's 94,493. So it's not that much more. We are, again, looking at sponsorships, donations, additional grants. I foresee those being higher than what I'm projecting. Now that I have Jess on board, I can work harder at those things because really I was spread very thin before I had an assistant, and it was very hard to get to all these other areas. So, do you want to ask questions now?
Sure.
Hopefully I can answer.
Anyone have a question? Ed? Okay, go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. So a couple questions for budgeting as it relates to sort of year over year. Last year you budgeted $20,000 in grants and saw none.
So,
am I seeing that right?
You are, because originally the vibrancy grant was going to be $20,000. So
that was all in one grant?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so when this was made last year, that's the figure that was put in because that's what we thought it was going to be. And actually, so I guess I was here last year and I presented this part of it. I truly wasn't fully aware of what everything was. And so that 20,000 appeared twice, like as a in and an out, but it was a little confusing. So it is just that only grant that came in was that, but it was 25. So that's, go ahead.
So you,
where?
But it hasn't come in, it didn't come in all in that fiscal year. I'm still waiting for some of it. So it's very hard for the accounting with our fiscal year the way it is.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, so, and have you identified the 5,000? I know you said that you're hopeful that it could be higher, and I love that and I appreciate that. Have you identified the 5,000 that you're budgeting as additional grants this year?
Not yet, but definitely towards some things for arts and, you know, revitalization downtown. Now, after this and the paperwork I have to do for the vibrancy grant, I can hit the ground running on looking at others.
Okay.
There are quite a few that we would be eligible for.
No, where is it in here? Oh, here, I see it, okay.
Yeah. We're just having a little trouble
This wasn't
following
in
it.
our original packet,
Yeah.
so I think we're
Yep.
struggling.
That is the same budget. It's
This
just
is the same, but not the, yeah.
Yeah, so the income and the expenses, I broke down into 2 slides.
Got it.
Because it's too much on one.
Okay, so, and I have one last question on the year-over-year comparison. Last year, your Harvest Fest brought in 16.3, and you are estimating it down at 13 this year. Is that just being careful, or are you changing a program that will generate less revenue?
I am, wait, hold on, let me see, actual Harvest Fest. Yeah, 16,382. So I am.
You offered a discount.
Yeah, I did. So that's part of it. I offered a discount. What did you say?
So we, in order to fill up both Harvest and Mayfest, if you signed up by a, I don't remember, April 1st, or you got a half price from Harvest Fest, half price on Harvest Fest, just so we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
It's always better to be, yeah, you know, like as prepared in advance of any of these festivals that we can be, the better. We have people like submitting applications the week of. We had no idea they were coming. They're paying the higher rate, but like we can't work that way. It's too short of notice. So the sooner we can get people booked in, the better. So that's why I offered that discount. Basically, if they paid for both festivals ahead of time, they got a discount. And I do believe that that is a big reflection there. Also, There were more bands because there were 4 stages. That wouldn't account for why there was more money, though. I'm a little confused on it myself, honestly. But so I can find out what that like $4,000 difference that I'm showing there will be from.
Is this from last year?
Last year we $16,382, and Harvest Fest I'm projecting is 12.
Okay, you had a lot of more expenses too, right?
We're just on the revenue line, though,
Yeah, but
Susan.
we're on the revenue.
Yeah,
That's
we're
why I just
looking
got
at
myself
income.
confused.
So I'm just concerned about that, and I will leave it at that, because it looks like
yes.
we're a little unsure.
Well, so I guess sort of piggyback, can I ask about Mayfest? It sounds like Mayfest brought in a lot less money than anticipated.
So there's a whole bunch of things that happen, and that's why I wish we could change our fiscal year from January to December. Because what happens is, right now, in the new fiscal year, some expenses from Mayfest are just coming in. So there's always this carryover.
Oh, that's fine. That's all I needed to know. Actually, you don't want to change your fiscal year if you, because you're tied into the municipal budget.
Right. So I mean, I can't.
That would be a real problem. Okay,
Yeah,
so
that would be
so
even
we're
more
half
confusing.
a year. We're sort of half a year in here. So this doesn't give
Yeah,
us
like I
true-
just got the PD
Yeah, that's okay.
invoice.
That's all. Yeah, that explains it. Thank you. Yeah, Jean.
I've never written a grant, but I know they take a lot of time. Have you explored the idea of hiring a grant writer? If that would be worth it?
I honestly think it would be worth it. I want to see how it's going to go now that I have Jess tackling some of the things that were like really bogging me down and causing me not to be able to get into that enough. If I find that it's still difficult or there's a really big grant, I will probably bring someone on. Shannon's offered, all the advice in the world, but she is so busy too. So I do know a grant writer who is very good. She used to work at the hospital, and that would be who I would consider. And she just works on a per grant basis. So I wouldn't have to bring her on staff.
Right.
Other questions from the board? Nancy.
The money that you're asking from, you're not asking for that from the town budget, are you?
It's from, it would be a slight increase for the downtown businesses, not the businesses, the people who own the buildings. It's the DID district.
It's not from the town budget, Nancy. It's a tax that is assessed against the businesses in the downtown, so it's a separate.
But how could you increase that?
If the select board approves this budget request, then the tax rate is set by their budget, versus the grand list of those downtown businesses. And that's why it's difficult to set, because those percentages change. The DID district is only assessed against commercial businesses in the downtown, so any use other than commercial is not assessed the tax. So it's a process that we go through every year to make a determination as to have there been any changes in the commercial businesses versus the residential. But I can tell you, just running the numbers here, the budget increase that they're seeking from us is 2.6%. It results in a 2.3% increase in the downtown district tax based on last year's downtown district grand list. So if there's any growth at all in the grand list, that percentage increase will be somewhat less. But we won't know that tonight.
Right. And I did check with Melissa on some of these numbers to make sure that I had it correct. This is based on the CPI, which is, well, it fluctuates a little, but 3.1 to 3.4. I based it on 3.1 and not on our whole budget, only on a portion of it, because I feel like we should be able to offset it with getting more sponsors and getting more grants. So I'm not like asking the DID to absorb the full cost of what I believe is going, things are going to cost.
Any other budget questions? Because I know you're not finished yet, but we did want to, since this is our primary responsibility here, we wanted to make sure. We're good? Okay, please continue.
Okay, so we can go on to expense, yeah. So we spent $22,137 less than we projected last year. Another reason that, like, I don't think that it's proper to ask for much more money than this. There were a few less events than anticipated. One event in particular changed kind of towards the event. And there was a staffing change and a salary change. So that's part of that $22,000 less that we spent from projected. That's a pretty good chunk. So, and that's kind of, I would like to see us stay in line with that 180 plus, because I don't think we need to go up much higher. I think that we can do it with a lot of dedication and hard work. Any questions on the expenses?
On the expenses. Can I just, sort of going back to the other, so part of your budget last year was predicated on the $20,000 grant from the state, and you got 25.
And we haven't gotten the full 25.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you are anticipating getting more this year. If you don't get that grant this year, are you able to absorb 25 or 30,000 out of your budget?
So that the budget I have to prepare for the Downtown Coalition has to show what that 25 would get spent on. And it's not our events, it's not running the visitor center, it's really above and beyond that. So what would happen is we would have to scale back on those things. So it wouldn't be like we would have to find $25,000 somewhere else, because those things that are being spent on are being implemented because of that grant.
And then the other question was, if you saw cost savings last year for all the reasons you've indicated, and so I assume that money's sort of moving over this year, which is meaning that you don't need as big an increase, but if you spend it all this year, then does that mean next year you're going to need to have a larger increase in the DID?
I'm hoping not. They're looking at keeping this vibrancy grant going. So I look at it like that is really going to take care of the big arts initiatives that we want to do. And then the events are going to sustain us in the event world. I've also, Susan calls me cheap, but I am cheap because I don't want to spend our funds needlessly. So I scaled back on how many bands are at these events, and it was no problem at all. People didn't even notice. Keeping things on Main Street, I was able to do that. So there was less expenditure in Mayfest, and there will be in Harvest Fest as well. So I think I really truly think that we're going to float right around that, unless, inflation goes insane.
Okay, great. That's great to hear. Other questions? Anything? All right. You have questions?
Come on, Ed.
I'm sorry. On this budget page, is this set up in the same column format? So on the left, I'm looking at proposed 25?
Yes, it got reversed, yes.
Okay, so make sure I'm on the right same page as you. Last year you spent 81 in salaries. This year you're projecting 91?
Let me find the salaries. Okay, so that's another whole thing. I'm not saying anything bad about Jenny, so please know that. So Jenny was, because we were autonomous and we were making equal amounts, when she was thinking that grant was going to come in, she was going to put it right towards salaries, 10 for each of us. That's not really what that grant is for, and that didn't happen anyway because of how things changed. And that will not happen. It is going towards initiatives.
So I guess my real question is sort of the opposite of what you might think. I'm assuming also last year there was some dark time because you weren't fully staffed the whole
Correct.
fiscal. So is 10,000 less in this year's budget, is 10,000 more in this year's budget for salaries really going to cover things? That's a thought question. And then health insurance being lower is also a question. I haven't seen that on anybody's budget.
No, okay, so this over here, I should have carried over the header. This over here is 23-24. That's 24-25. So salaries in 24-25 are $91,480. In her, Jenny's projection, it was $93,996, but it only ended up being the 81. So I'm actually figuring it to be less.
Expenses on healthcare?
I'm sorry, what are we looking at? No, salaries.
I'm looking at salaries and health insurance,
Okay.
and I thought this was the 25 projected column, and I
Yeah,
guess I'm confused.
This is the original.
Yeah, I messed that up with the slide and what you have from when I originally sent it to you.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that, Ed. I just wanted to see if I could confuse you. Right. Yeah, so like Bill and Jessica are both part-time, so there's no health insurance for them. For me, it's a stipend. So that's also, like, that is an accurate figure.
Got it. Instead of 2 full-time people.
Right.
Got it.
Right. So when the executive director role got split into 2, everything got split. So what Jenny had been getting prior to the split got divided. So that's why it really didn't go up when they brought me on board, because it was just now a divided figure. When she left, mine went back up, but I'm the only one getting it. And health insurance is very expensive.
So you're comfortable with the fact that last year it was 9,100 and this year you're budgeting 8 because there's only one of you rather than a budgeted 2 of you last
Correct.
year? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking that. And I'm sorry I really confused you with that.
It's okay, I'm sorry to belabor it, but budgeting is one thing.
I should have brought you over.
Sorry, Susan.
Next year, I'm going to have you come in and work with us. Okay, so any more questions on expense? It wouldn't seem so confusing if we didn't have so many weird changes. I think going forward, it's going to be more clear-cut, like going each year forward.
We can say tumultuous.
So I am a very big visualization person. I find that it's really much clearer that way. So on the next 2 slides, I don't have to discuss them unless you have any questions. But Jonah, can you go forward, please? It's pie charts, and it just really shows you how it all comes to be. And it's just based off the exact numbers that we just went over. And the next one?
So wait, so
go back.
sponsorship, looking at the color on.
Do you want to go back?
Sponsorships were half, is that what is the?
Sponsorships are that slice right there, that like flesh colored.
Okay.
Yeah. It's always very different, I think, when you look at it in a pie chart. Like, it really makes the amounts stand out and how little something is. Can we go forward?
You're getting half of your funding through sponsorships more than the DID funding? I don't.
No. I think the 2 orange colors are really similar.
That's why I couldn't.
So the opposite side, how it was always done in the past, so I went with it, is how everything gets brought back to 0. So if there's $185,608 in income, then there was that in expense. So when you see the half of the pie, that is 185,000, and that's showing you how it's made up. It's a little confusing how.
Oh, that isn't a whole pie. It's a half pie.
Half a pie.
So in total funding income is one half of it and the other is split out?
Is how it's made up.
So just look at a half a pie.
Yeah. I should have explained that too. I'm learning a lot this year on what I have to do for next year.
Yeah, just give us the half pie looking like a whole pie.
Yeah, not the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, next please. Oh, you did already?
Let's look at the expenses.
So it basically is the exact same thing again. If, projected expense is 185,608, this is where we're projecting that it's going to go.
So, and the biggest ones are what? Are salaries and vibrancy?
And event expense and vibrancy fund. And what that is that same money that's coming in on the grant will go back out. It has to. Otherwise, we don't qualify for the next year's spending.
Yeah, for what?
Yeah, how was that spent?
So right now, I'm basing it off of our, for 23-24, it was really good because we had a very intensive, I got approval for this, intensive board retreat with a moderator who I think gave a lot of really great suggestions, and a lot is going to come out of that, or already is. We were able to, the BBC's IT was not secure for one thing, and there were a lot of problems. I was able to bring someone in and get us brought up to date, and we are very secure now. So for that year, for 23-24, there was some expense built in for those types of things. Then the rest went to art. We have the Riverwalk now, there's 5 pieces, and now we're getting our banners and the signage. Thank you to the town on brackets. And then we also have a quilt trail coming, which also has a big expense. So you'll start seeing where the money's getting spent as you start seeing art around town, or different music fest than just what's at Mayfest and Harvest Fest. And I have to account for every dollar with them.
So I think for us, it would probably be lovely to, instead of just say vibrancy fund,
to break it down,
to say what that 24,000,
okay,
how that was spent,
okay. So for 24-25, I'm still working on that right now. We have until July 16th to submit it. The previous one I should have probably included on here so you could see where it went, but I'm still finalizing that paperwork too. Everything was due at the same time. Any other questions on these? I know I'm way over on time, I'm sorry. This next slide is just, again, another visualization, and it shows you what was projected last year is in the center. What we actually did is on the right, and on the left is what I'm projecting. And I would like to just read a few of these things down here, if that's okay. The 24-25 projection is already $18,385 less than the last year's budget projection. Let's see, which is only, so the projected for 24-25 is $3,700 more than the actual for 23-24. What I guess I'm trying to show you is that the actual money that got spent, brought in and spent for 23-24 is very similar to what I am projecting for 24-25. And that's kind of where that all is. I show you the CPI index rate and what I'm basing it on. A true budget increase based on that would have been an increase of $5,600. That's why I'm saying I feel like we should absorb some of it, and that's why I only came up with the 2463 after like a million calculations. Ed, I can explain it all if you need it. So that's that's kind of just a brief explanation on the bottom. Next. Is it going to play from there? Yes. Is the music going to play? Okay. So the music is not there, but these are, this is a year in review of our events, signature events, some of our smaller events, and just some exciting moments. It just kind of gives you, you know, like a visual again of everything that really happens. We made a big deal about Small Business Saturday. We served about, I don't know, it felt like 7,000 cups of hot chocolate. Susan and I built those great big deer that you saw on the splash pad. That's a new addition. People really came out for Small Business Saturday, and then the new festive gathering that we did in the park was, we tried to be very inclusive. Kind of bounces around a little. Yeah. World of Wonder is so amazing. They show up and do so much for us. That was Juneteenth. McD getting an award. We did a lot of ribbon cuttings. Part of the art installation. Next stage. And just showing you some of our events. And we ended with the moose.
Lovely, thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry it took so much of your time.
Well, that's okay. We're still we're still here. So, any more questions before we ask for any comments or questions from the audience? Anything else from us? Thank you. All right. Anyone in the audience have a question? All right. So then, I think I'm not seeing any questions.
Just me.
Yep.
I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Jeannie and for struggling through this past year. I think she did an awesome job with what we had to work with. So thank you, Jean. And I just want to say from the BBC, we're just thrilled to have everything that's coming downtown. Well, there you are. Yeah, I knew where you went. We're so excited about the skate park, and the junior high is coming. We're just beyond thrilled. So thanks for your time.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I think that brings us to looking for a motion to accept the Better Bennington Corporation's budget for 24-25. This is for the purposes of discussion.
Madam Chair, what you're voting on is to accept the request for the Downtown Improvement District funding.
Okay.
It's not the entire budget.
Okay. All right. Oh, good point. Okay. All right. Somebody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All right. Any further discussion?
Could you just remind us how much of an increase that would be for each impacted?
I'm sorry, say that.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I've got to get closer. How much of an increase would that be for each impacted?
So it's based on, 100,000, for every 100,000 worth of business property, not like if they reside there, it's $7 roughly. So Stu had a figure. What did you say?
Well, the tax rate increase is 2.3%. The budget increase is 2.6%. So the impact on the tax rate will only be 2.3%.
And that's in the DID?
That's in the DID only, yep.
Okay.
And that's only for business, the business portion of any property.
That's correct.
Right.
Any other questions? All right, then I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any, can I just, did you vote? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm doing whiplash.
It was great seeing everybody's hands up.
Yes, we need to make this a you again. It's getting really hard to look up and down. All right, any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, it's unanimous. Thank you very much.
I thank all of you.
Thank you.
And for everything that you do for this town, not just for approving the budget.
Thank you very much for your hard work.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so next up is Ben High funding update and loan request.
So hi, I'm Dan Monks, the Assistant Town Manager for Bennington, and I'm here to introduce Zach Hale, essentially, who you all know is working diligently on the Ben High project. Zach's going to give us an update on the funding stack for the project and also make a request for a loan to pay for some of the pre-development costs. Essentially, that loan would come out of a portion of the $2 million that's been reserved from ARPA funds for construction. The way that loan would be structured, it would be paid out to the property owner and then almost within the next few weeks, and then it would be paid back at the closing so that it could go back into the project for the construction of the tenant improvements for the town. Just as a reminder, we've committed to $2 million for those tenant improvements, and the cost of those tenant improvements, correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, are near the $12 to $13 million. So good deal for us. But in any event, Zach Hale, he's here to give us an update on the funding and talk about the loan request if you have any questions. And Shannon and Jonah and I are available for questions as well. So thank you. Zach.
Thank you, Dan. And I did send a PowerPoint. Yeah, but it was at, do you have it, or do you have it Wi-Fi?
We don't have any Wi-Fi here today.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, I can just give you my laptop. Maybe we can pull that up. Would that work? Appreciate it. Okay, cool. So I have this presentation, and kind of wanted to just go through where we're at with the project right now. So in addition to the funding, also just give you a status update on kind of where everything is at, and showing this as the first slide. This is the final plan for the project. So we're actually going out to bid for all of this tomorrow, which I'll talk more about and give you a little bit of a timeline on that. But these are all the spaces, which is what we've been talking about since the last time we were here. So nothing's changed much, but 17 perpetually affordable housing units in the LIHTC condo and 22 middle-income housing units, the public meeting space, the child care facility, both the offices, and then the town renting the senior center and the commercial kitchen and auditorium for Meals on Wheels, and the senior center, and then the gym and the locker room and fitness center for the YMCA. Some of the things that have materialized too is that we do plan on this being a 100% electric building. So we'll have solar on the roof, and there'll be a geothermal system for the heating and cooling, and then the commercial kitchen being electric as well. And then something that's come up more recently for design and really like navigating is that because it's in a flood zone, we are going to flood-proof the entire building, and pretty much like 4 feet up will make it so that if there is a really bad flooding event in Bennington, then this building will be protected. So some of the most recent funding announcements is the MBRC award, which was one that actually Shannon applied for and received, and also the CDBG grant was another one that she applied for and we received an enhancement on. And then we've also gotten some term sheets from the New Market Tax Credit Investor, which is like a really big milestone to hit. And then we're starting to have things in place enough to start engaging with lenders and really making that ask for the debt that we need for both the bridge loan and the permanent debt. And then for the programming, we received our LOI, a letter of interest from UVM Extension, and we just did a site visit with the YMCA board as well, and are working on the details of that LOI right now. And then, like I said, we just completed some construction documents and we plan to go out to bid tomorrow. And then the environmental review, which is a big hurdle because you can't do any work or even own the property until you finish it. We just finished our corrective action plan and our flood mitigation report, which were the last things on that checklist. And so in terms of timing, we have the 9th going out to bid again tomorrow, and then bids coming back on August 2nd. And so we then will take some time to really navigate all of that and do a leveling sheet just to make sure we're comparing apples to apples on the 12th. And then planning to have a guaranteed maximum price from our construction manager on August 30th and starting construction on December 1st. And so between the time of August 30th and December 1st, we'll really be focusing on getting over the finish line with closing and everything. And what our intention is August, middle of August, having really all of those commitments and term sheets from all of the investors and lenders and grant funders, and then working on closing from August, mid-August to mid-November, and really taking 3 months to kind of put all of the pieces together in contracts and get to a closing. And so this is a much more, larger and more definite funding stack that we have since we last came here as well, with the majority of these funding sources committed, but we are going to go through some of them. It says in the status column where some of them are at, but most of them awarded, and we're going to look at, and I'll just skip to the next one, of these really being the ones we're pursuing right now and are still applying for and like going after, and need to submit some applications for in order to take next steps. So these are all things, again, that we're hoping to have materialize by the middle of August. And so, like Dan mentioned about the pre-development funding, where we are at right now is having to spend $2.5 million just to get to the point of closing financially so that we can take next steps. And a lot of this has been with the actual design of the building, as you can see, and the environmental testing and planning that we've had to do, and then legal and accounting and consultants. And so there's been a lot of people who have been helping make this project come to fruition, and it costs a lot. And so this is all of the different types of funding sources that we've utilized to get to this point, and what we then expect to need to actually get this project to that completion. So just to tie things out real quick, this is pretty much the same slide as the last one. In the total column, you can see the $2,536,000, and if I just go back, that's the same number here. So this is just expanding, and on the top are all of those funding sources, and then what they were used for each line item. And this yellow highlighted one is the one that we're specifically looking for the support for from that $2 million that's been allocated to the project to release as a loan prior to closing so that we can get to the finish line. And then at the closing, we would then pay those funds back and hope that, and then have the town contribute them to the project so that we can leverage that funding to generate tax credits. And just to kind of take all of that information and then just condense it down to that 500,000, this is where that would be spent. So on the final portion of the design, we still need to have engaged with all of these consultants and engineers and architects to get to the point of 100% construction documents and go through the bidding process. And we have some work on the flood mitigation stuff that is being left until right now that we're super focused on now. And then the legal and accounting and consulting and the closing fees. And so those are the costs of all of the banks and lenders, well, all the lenders and the funders and the CD, like the new market tax credit folks, investors, that will have to incur all of their legal fees once we start those closing calls. And then to get to closing. And then there was the $2 million that had been specifically allocated to the construction. And so without worrying about this funding anymore, of that 340 had been spent, that is like staying there, and that additional 160 can be used for the town's cost as things move forward. Of the $2 million, we're asking for 500,000 of that to be lent to the project right now so that we can use it to get to the closing. And then at closing, we would pay that loan back so it can be allocated, like re-given to the project at the day of closing as a grant rather than a loan.
Great, thank you. All right, I'll open it to the board for questions. Nancy.
Zach, back on the $500,000, the pre-development, that is just what we have used on our section. That has not gone at all to your section, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. In addition to that 340, we've spent it's probably close to 1.5.
You spent what?
About 1.5 million.
Okay.
To date, yeah.
And the rest of the $500,000 that we've been spending in ARPA, that would stay with us. I think you've got like 150 left or something. That would stay with our town.
Yeah, I suspect that funding would be fully utilized by the time that the town is in the space, because looking back at what the funding was being used for, my understanding was it had spent some architectural stuff on some architectural drawings very early in the process, some legal fees, and then there was there's some fit-up costs for specific towards security that the town doesn't want us to cover because it's a secure thing that they're going to take care of. So I expect that there'll still need to be the rest of that 500 spent. And if Dan wanted to
but it's spent
add
by the
anything
town.
to
That was your question.
No, but I'm just making sure that, I thought if he goes back to the slide before, I just want to make sure all those costs were just with us.
This slide?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing in here from the town's pre-development costs. This is all just what I've been spending.
Well, I thought there was one that just had the $500,000.
Yeah.
Let's see what you're going to spend that, yeah.
Yeah.
Right there.
That's how they're going to spend it.
This is how we're asking to spend the 500 that would be lent to us from the 2 million
That's where I was
bucket.
confused with it.
Yeah, okay.
Just to clarify, I know you've got Nancy, but maybe some other people don't. So that balance of that $500,000 of ARPA funds that the town has dedicated to pre-development costs, which is about 150-ish, that will go towards fit-up costs like Zach had mentioned, security, furnishings, et cetera. And we had outlined those previously, and those haven't changed, but those haven't been expended yet because that will be part of the fit-up.
And that funding's being managed by the town?
Right, that's town funds, and we will be expending that ourselves. It won't be through the Hales.
Thank you.
Yes, Jean.
I know we're here talking money, but I noticed on the timeline, the start of construction was December, so what that tells me is weather should not be a problem at all.
Oh, for us to start?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to mobilize the site, and so maybe plow at that point.
Yeah, no, that's fine, but sometimes...
Then our focus is going to be on environmental remediation, which actually works out, from my understanding, a little bit better in the winter because there's not as much going on, and those guys are going to be wearing hazmat suits, and it gets really hot in the summer, and so it is a good start date for us.
That's good, that's good. I mean, I know sometimes it's hard to pour concrete in the winter, but
yeah,
this
we'll be
is not
going
that situation
all
at all.
backwards until it gets warmer, and then we'll be doing stuff like that.
Great, thanks.
I have a question. When I hear the word loan, it pops to mind, is this an interest-free or loan just a generic term being used for a temporary transfer of funds?
So for various legal reasons, which Zach can maybe explain better than I am, this does have to be a loan so that it's not recognized as income, is that correct? And then subject to taxes. So it will be a loan. It will be a 0% loan, very short term, till November-ish timeline. So that is correct, Clark. It is a loan, but it's a 0% loan. Yes.
And I can talk more about that tax liability if you'd like.
No.
Okay.
Tom, Ed?
Nancy has her hand up.
Well, everybody gets, Tom or Ed, anything? No? Okay. Nancy?
Zach, right now today, how much do you actually have total? And what's the total cost of the project?
So what I was showing up there is we need to, well, I don't have any money right now, right? I have commitments for
What
money.
you have in commitment right now today?
Yeah.
And what's the total cost of the Ben High project?
The total cost is just over 49 million, and we have over 40 million committed at this time. And we're looking for some more like tax credit allocation that hasn't been committed yet, and so we don't need to raise money for that. We would then be able to utilize, generate tax credits when we get the allocation. So all of the cash that like we actually need on this slide, this is what we're going towards right now, is the 4.8 that we still need to apply for and seek. The other ones, and we have a few other million that we have applications in, and the conversation seems like that it's available specific towards like Brownsfield and stuff. So over $40 million has been raised for this project right now.
Okay, so right now you're at 49 for the project. What will the assessed value be on our grand list if completed?
At the end of the first year,
No, when the project's done, what will I see it on the grand list for?
I'm not exactly sure. I was assuming
I thought you
over-
said around 7 million, but that was when it was at maybe 29?
No, I still think it's going to be in the $6 to $8 million range. I don't see it being much higher than that.
That's it?
That's it.
Yeah.
The unfortunate part is a lot of the costs that you see are not going towards value of the property. They're going to deal with environmental issues. They're going to deal with historic preservation issues. Those kinds of things don't translate to value of property. So when he gets done with all of this expense, if he were to put the property on the market, he'd probably get around 6 to 8 million for it.
Okay. Just stop me, Jeannie, when you want to, because I have a line of questions here.
Well, yeah, I just want, anyone else have a question, and then we'll go back to Nancy.
On the subject of cost, what is the exact amount of funding or money that the town is committed and obligated to, regardless of the final cost of this project?
$2 million for the hard costs of doing the construction, $500,000 for pre-development costs, and the senior center, which is valued at $400,000, a total of $2.9 million.
And that's an absolute?
We will not be asking when we close on this project, we will have to have all of the funding in a bank account on the day of closing, and we will have to have significant contingencies and guarantees for completion. So those will have to be committed on the day of closing, and the town is not being asked to provide any of that. Only the transfer of the senior center and $2 million on that day. The other 500 is up to them, how they spend and use it.
So 2.9 million, period, regardless of your cost as things projected. I know you were posting something on a projected total cost.
Yeah.
estimate to be provided. So regardless of what that is, the taxpayers of this town are responsible for 2.9 million.
Well,
period.
ARPA funds are.
Okay, the monies that we, the town of Bennington, are going to provide will be how much? Regardless of where they come from, what will the money the town provide be?
2.9.
Yep, yeah, and I would point out, Clark, because we've been here for a while talking about this project, and originally we were in the lower amount projecting in cost, and have learned all of this stuff about this building over the years, and have started getting more concrete construction numbers with our CM on board, and so the cost has increased quite significantly since we first started with what we've had projected, and the whole time the town has been at 2.9 with all of those increased costs. So we've just had to build the capital stack that we've provided has just grown over time as well.
Okay.
And we're at 30 funding sources or so right now.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Nancy.
So you do not have a signed contract with the board of directors of the YMCA?
We're going to work, the 3 months of closing is when all the contracts will be drafted and they will be signed on the day of closing. So I don't own the space to lease it at this time. I have an option to buy, and so that is something that will come later on, the contract. But the YMCA has been designing the building with us, and we're building it very similar to the Pittsfield location.
You're talking about the basement?
Yes.
Okay. And how is the problem, how many kids are you approved to have down there?
We're going to be seeking a license for 102.
Okay. And how are you going to address the issue that you're not going to be allowed to have a stove or oven to feed the kids?
That would be there'll be kitchenettes in there for the use of heating up food and then providing it to children during the day.
Yeah, but it's just microwaves and hot plates, right?
Yeah.
Well, they should be getting real food. Never seen anything about the playground. Do you have any design for that?
We were actually asked to just provide a gated-in grassy area and not have any actual equipment in that space.
Has that been publicly discussed?
That is not been publicly discussed. It was something that the tenant asked for. So we were just doing what they asked.
At the town?
No, the child care facility is a separate lease from the town's lease. So we would.
I realize that.
Yeah, and so it was the YMCA that asked for that to just be grass and not have anything in it.
But the Y isn't funding any of this. So you're going to have 100 kids in the basement, no stove and oven, and there's going to be no playground other than grassy area. I'm just comparing what UCS has.
102 kids. There'll be kitchenettes for heating food, which is a standard operating procedure of a child care facility, and there'll be a grassy space, which is what I was asked to provide by the.
Then I'll check, because I know UCS.
So Nancy, I'm going to stop you, because this will be a private contract between the YMCA and ZAC. So this is private development. This is not public development.
You won't be running the daycare.
It is not part of the town.
Jean's got questions, and she come back to me.
Actually, it's not a question, but I seem to remember at a previous meeting, you had stated that the parents will be sending food, lunches in with their children.
Yeah, that's my understanding. That is how it's done at their current child care facility.
Right. So the facility is not responsible for providing breakfast, lunch, whatever it is for the children. It's the parents' responsibility.
Yeah, that's correct. And I don't know why at all. That's just all I know. Right. And so yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that.
But this would really be up to the YMCA.
Exactly. I'm just trying to get accurate information out there.
All right.
Have you solved the problem? Last time I saw the parking, there were only 3 parking spaces on site to load and unload all those kids twice a day. Have you increased that parking on site?
The parking spaces is 67 parking spaces.
For the daycare, Zach, the last time I saw the plans, there were 3 spaces for parents to park, take their kids in downstairs and come out. Three spaces won't cut it. Have you addressed that issue?
No, I haven't, we haven't addressed it. I don't know that there's only 3 spaces for child, I'm not sure where that was located. So there'll be 67 parking spaces. In the front of the building, there'll be about 35 in that area, and...
I believe that's what they talked about at the DRB.
Yeah.
At one point, they asked about being able to put cones in the road to save spaces, and that didn't work.
Well, there, in addition to the 65 units, there's about 15 on the street right in front of the building, which can be utilized for that purpose. And that's just on Main Street. There's about 50 parking spaces like in the vicinity of Ben High that if we include the street parking.
Is there any tie with the Ben High to the rec center or the senior center building?
Say that again?
Will there be any tie with the Ben High project to the rec center facility or to the senior center building?
What do you mean tie? Can you clarify?
Okay.
The question?
The senior center building. Way back right at the beginning, we were told that the senior center building and the Ben High would tie together for additional grants and tax credits for housing in the 2 buildings.
They haven't.
I'm sorry? You don't know anything about that?
Are you referring to spaces inside of Ben High as the buildings?
There's the Ben High and there's the senior center building.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about those 2 projects being tied together?
I think Stu is responding at this point. Go ahead.
I don't think the 2 are essentially tied together. We will be selling the senior center. What the new owner does with the senior center is entirely, up to the new owner, not necessarily Zach.
So that's, I just want to make sure it's not going to be tied to the Ben High.
No.
Okay. And is there any tie with our rec center property building to the Ben High? Or maybe I could ask Shannon that as far as grants or anything? No?
Program only.
You said the building is going to be all electric?
That's correct.
And that's probably going to impact the cost of the people of Bennington, because I'm still waiting for somebody to post the lease that Stu signed with Meals on Wheels. I haven't seen the contract that our town would have to enter into with the Y for the gym and the addition. I don't know how the board thinks they can charge the town taxpayers $288 a year. $88,000 is new taxes. There's no voter approval for that.
Nancy, I'm not really sure where you're going with this.
Well,
I think if you go back to electricity, I think Zach has already stated there will be solar panels on the roof.
And geothermal, which is a really efficient way of heating and cooling a building, much better than using air, like an air source heat pump. This is a ground source, and it's extremely efficient.
Then the $288,000 a year the town taxpayers are going to have to pay, that cost should go down. I'm sorry?
That's false.
What are you talking about? Can you clarify what you're talking about?
I think we can look to Dan, perhaps.
I'm talking about the taxpayers' commitment for the gym and the addition each year.
So I think what Nancy's referring to is, the slide we showed back in January, where we indicated what we projected as the additional operating costs of the space, since we were going to have 30,000 square feet more space. And we projected about 88,000, not 280, but 88,000 in additional costs, which we thought we might be able to offset with reduced operating agreement with YMCA, but we didn't count on that because we wanted to be conservative. Given what Zach has done to make this an all-electric geothermal building with solar panels, we expect that at least the utility costs will not be as much. So I think 88,000 is probably a very conservative number, and it's not 288, it's 88,000.
Well, there's 200,000 that you had said we already are spending and are going to swing up to the Ben High. I looked on the website over the weekend to see a breakdown. I don't see that.
Right, so the 88,000, as I mentioned, is above and beyond what we currently spend.
But I still want to see, what is this 200,000 that we're paying right now? Is that on the website anyplace?
So I'm not sure what you're referring to for the 200,000, but we could certainly show you what our current expenditures are for the senior center, and that's what we base it on. Was we took what we're paying currently for the senior center, and we said, what are we going to have to spend above and beyond that to maintain the Ben High? Do you have?
But the
I think I remember the slide you're talking about, Nancy. The 200,000 is referring to the management agreement that we already have with the YMCA, and also what we were spending on our town recreation budget before the Y began. So that's the cost that we already incur with them. That's not going to change at Ben High. We're just going to have much more expanded services and space for the Y to actually generate more income.
But when I talked to you two at the Ben High last year, the Y will be charging people in groups to use the gym and the addition. They keep the money. None of it comes back to our town budget. They're going to get grants too. That's why I don't understand why the Y couldn't directly rent from the Hales.
All right, so I think Dan can clarify that.
To be determined, but we do expect a significant reduction, if not a zeroing out, of the operating agreement costs for the YMCA. But we're not counting on that because we don't want to project that and then have it not come to fruition because we haven't negotiated that. But we do expect, given the additional space and the additional fees that they can generate and the additional memberships that they hopefully can generate by having a gymnasium, that operating expense, that operating agreement, a management agreement that we're now entered into with the YMCA, that amount would at the very least be reduced, if not zeroed out. Again, we're not counting on that because we don't have that negotiated yet. The YMCA hasn't been able, they don't have any real projections yet. So we think that first year we'll be able to feel that out, and hopefully our hope from the beginning and our goal from the beginning has always been to bring that operating agreement down to zero, where we're just providing the facility, the YMCA is doing the programming, and we don't have to pay additional costs. Right now, we do pay an operating agreement, a management agreement fee, and we're still counting on that being paid, but we hope, based on whatever happens in the first year, if we can bring that down.
But aren't we still paying the $12,000 a month?
Yeah, can you explain so the management fee is a maximum amount of money we pay. Stu, is this?
Yeah, our current agreement with the Y is $12,000 a month. It's $144,000 a year that we are paying the Y to provide the programming for us at the senior center and at the former Catamount School. What Dan is talking about is if, in fact, this facility comes to fruition, they're able to increase the number of programs, increase the attendance, increase the fees. We are hoping that $144,000 will come as close to zero as possible.
Because if they make more money,
saving the taxpayers $144,000 a year.
Right.
And then we also have expenditures currently for the senior center that we are currently spending that we will approximately match when we move over into the new building.
So is that clear? The amount goes down. The more successful the Y is, the less we pay, because they need a certain amount of money as a minimum to be able to run their facility.
Aren't we paying $12,000 a month at the rec center?
We're paying them $144,000 a year for the programming that they are providing.
But yes, and so if the more successful they are, the less we have to pay them of that amount.
That's correct, but we have been consistent at 144 for the last two.
Yes, and that's what Dan is talking about. He's not going to, even though programming will be expanded because we have more space and the ability to offer new programming.
We expect that memorandum of understanding that we have will be reduced substantially.
Jeannie?
Yeah.
Can we stick to the agenda item, please?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that...
This was not warned.
I understand.
This was not warned.
But I also think it's important that people not be misled and told that information, given information that's not accurate. So I think both Dan and Stu are trying to clarify that.
When Dan did the presentation last year, he said $200,000, the taxpayers are already paying it. We're swinging that up to the Ben High. Am I correct?
I don't recall a specific.
Sorry?
I think I can clarify this. My memory is very clear on this. There were $288,000 in expenditures at the Ben High building that the town would be responsible for. Of that, we are already spending $200,000 in various other places. The incremental was $88,000. That means the worst-case scenario, the expense for the new project is $88,000 above current expenses for various buildings and projects. Let me finish, Nancy. The understanding, and that was worst-case scenario before we factor in any reduction in cost to the Y or reduction in costs for things like utilities based on the new building being more efficient.
So I can say that the sentiment is accurate. I don't have off the top of my head whether it was 288 or, whatever it was. I do know, because I checked my numbers, that what we had projected was the net increase was $88,000 in operating costs for the building, for the for the portion of the new building. That was our projection, a conservative estimate.
Okay, so we're putting this piece to bed because it has absolutely nothing to do with what we're doing right now.
Jeannie,
and
this
we
is-
are seriously over. So
Of the
Nancy,
$88,000, there is a school tax. I remember that, correct? A
school
In
tax?
the $88,000?
We're not talking about school.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, I think it's important because this is going to be the responsibility of our taxpayers, and that's why I wanted to find out what this 200 is
So the
we're
taxes
paying right
the
now.
school taxes were included because there's a triple net lease, and we would be
I'm sorry?
The school tax was included because there was a triple net lease, and we would be responsible for the taxes. Obviously, the municipal taxes come back to us, but the school taxes have to be paid as a triple net leaseholder.
Okay. So there is a school tax in the $88,000.
I believe so, yes. I'd have to look back, but if you give me a second, I can look at that.
Did you say yes or no?
He said
yes.
give him a minute and he will look it up. And so
Okay.
he will let you know. So let's move on. Yes, okay.
Okay.
Answer's yes.
Town budgets don't pay school taxes, so that's a question I've had. School budgets pay school taxes.
Nancy, I think that level of detail, you need to sit down with Dan privately and have that conversation, because that is not relevant to this conversation at all.
Okay, and the last thing is the parking lot. I watched the meeting from 2 years ago, and you clearly said when you got to Phase 2, that was the TIF. And the TIF had always tied the parking lot to the town. We don't have a TIF now, so I still don't understand why the town taxpayer should pay to maintain that parking lot for the rest of their lives if Hale is going to own the building.
So we did discuss this before. I'd be happy to
Dan, wait till you, come on up.
So we did discuss this before, but I'm happy to reiterate. So as a triple net lease tenant, you're going to pay for your portion of the maintenance fees. We made the determination that it's very likely that the town could maintain the building for less than it would pay a third party to do that through the Hales, through a lease fee that we would have to pay. So we believe that given that we're already maintaining the senior center, that this would be no additional cost to maintain the Ben High parking lot. It's not a large facility. So that was a determination we made that our crews could do it less expensively to the taxpayer than having to pay our portion of the maintenance fee to have somebody else do the maintenance.
And this board understood that, and we are here today because of those decisions that were made.
All right, other questions that are relevant? Yes, Deb.
Debbie Bennington, the current senior building, will we still have access to it until after we physically get moved in to see if everything is okay or whatnot? And you said the building is going to be completely electric. Does that mean the kitchen is not going to have propane cooking stoves?
Yeah, so the agreement that we have right now with the current owner of the building is that the property would be transferred at closing, but the town would be able to utilize it for the senior center and Meals on Wheels until the transfer, like until the project is complete and you guys actually move in. So there'll be no disruption in any of that. And that kind of played into some of the decision-making of the commercial kitchen, in addition to being able to put this project out there as a 100% electric building has opened up opportunities for us to receive some of the funding that we have received and that we're going after now. And so, and there's a lot of that out there right now. So that was one of the biggest motivators in making that decision. The other was that if we were to utilize the equipment and the kitchen equipment in the current senior center, then, or Meals on Wheels kitchen, then we would have to move it, and that process would be timely and inexpensive. And so instead of moving it and having them work out of like a truck or something for weeks, we would just buy a whole new kitchen and fit the entire thing and have it so they can just move the food and move into a kitchen and utilize it the same day. And so that there's no programming delays or pauses.
If you watch any of the cooks on television and whatnot, they all cook on propane. And it is a big learning process to go from propane to electric. And I volunteer at Meals on Wheels, and I know they are very attached to their propane kitchen. So I can't speak for them, but I can tell you, they're not going to be happy. And another question, is the whole thing going to be done in 18 months, or is it just the part that we're moving into and the rest is still going to be under construction?
The day the doors open, the entire project will be done.
And will the town of Bennington continue to run the senior center?
That's a question for Stuart, and please wait to be recognized.
I'm not sure how the senior center programs will simply relocate.
Okay. And our town staff will continue to run the senior center? The Y will not take over the senior center?
So that is way off. We are not discussing
Jeannie, it is not.
programming. Yes,
when
it is. It's
when you
totally
brought the
off.
Y to Bennington with the group, that was a big concern by many, and the public was promised over and over
Nancy,
the
it may be a concern, but it is not this agenda item.
We're discussing a funding stack.
We're funding, and we're
Well, but
getting
you
close
want to have the
looking for
project
somebody
go
to make a
forward.
motion.
I want to make sure everybody's clear what's going to be happening with the gym and the addition.
That's not been determined at this time, Nancy.
The senior center will relocate, and that is the piece of it that is relevant to this discussion.
Yeah, I mean, and we're so close right now to getting this project closed, and we need to close this year because in addition to the town's ARPA funding, there's other ARPA funding. So we've all spent a lot of money on this project, and we need to spend this $500,000 to get us to the finish line and close by November 15th, so that we can then jump into these conversations more deeply and figure all of these things out in the next, but before closing mainly because we'll have leases and stuff that we're negotiating and signing, so like that is all to come. But right now, we can't continue to move forward without having some additional pre-development costs.
All right, so I'm going to, unless it's a relevant question, I'm going to call the motion.
It's a comment. We were all promised 2 years ago a solid $20 million. I think when people find out this is $49 million, I think many will question it. And as far as what happens in the gym and the addition, we'll figure it out later. No, the people of Bennington should have come first.
It's the same $2.9 million that we've been talking about since the beginning of the project. Can I ask the chair to call for a motion,
Yeah,
please?
I am. So I'm looking for, and correct me if this is not the right motion, a motion to loan Hale Resources $500,000 to be repaid at the closing of Ben High when the property is transferred to Hale Resources.
Yes, the Hale Resources do not own the building, so I'll just, make that clarification that it would be 650 Main Street LLC, which is the address of the property.
Okay, what is it?
650 Main Street LLC.
Okay.
Good to know, Zach.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to make that motion, please.
I'd like to second it.
Thank
you, Jean.
Any last discussion on this motion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Please say nay.
No.
And any abstentions? All right, the ayes have it. Thank you very much.
I really appreciate everything.
Thank you so much, Zach.
All right, next up, we have an occasional standing item called staff update, and we've asked Shannon to come and give a staff update on community development, particularly grant process, and also I think she has a grant application that she would like us to approve.
Yes, thank you. So let's start with the practical piece. As you heard, we need all the funds we can get for Ben High to get it to the finish line. So I'm working on a grant application. It's actually the Department of Children and Families under the Agency of Human Services. They have funding for permanent supportive housing. I think Ben High is going to be a good application for that perpetually affordable side of the building. And so I just need this form, it's called a certification of local government approval, to apply for this grant application, which is due Wednesday. So
Can you give us, yes, I think, so we don't need a motion, or do we need a motion?
I think you need a motion from the board to approve of you, Jeannie, as a select board chair. Basically what this says is that at the select board chair duly authorized to act on behalf of the Bennington Select Board to approve the following project application, the Ben High redevelopment, which is to be located in Bennington, and then signed as the signatory local official.
I'm happy to make that motion, just like she said.
Just like she said.
And I'm going to second it just like she said, because she said it so perfectly.
Do you want me to say that again? Or you could just say a motion to...
approve a select board chair to authorize to approve the application so noted by Shannon or Sadi. Okay.
So I'm going to hand this over.
All right, any discussion?
Who did she say it was for?
Is that DCF, Shannon?
This is part of the funding stack for Ben High.
Yes, this money will go to Ben High.
How Zach just had the spreadsheet that showed the gap he's still trying to fill. Well, one of those grants that we're going for is through the Agency of Human Services. Is for permanent supportive housing. So this would go towards the 17 perpetually affordable housing units and constructing those. Part of the reason for this funding is really to address, particularly the most vulnerable households, who are the most low income, at risk of homelessness. And so that is what that housing is designed to do. And we're applying for $1 million.
Thank you. That was a good question. Good answer. Thank you.
Other questions?
How many bedrooms are each of those? Are they 1, 2, 3?
It's a mix. Zach, do you want to get up and explain that?
Sorry, I know it's kind of getting late. I'm very curious about that one.
So it's an interesting question, because technically some of them, I think it'll be 6 two-bedrooms in those 17, but, or maybe a little bit more. But the thing is that we meet code for 2 bedrooms because we'll have skylights and a sprinkler system, but we can't call them bedrooms or charge rent for it being a second bedroom, because there's some funders who don't feel great about it. So we're still navigating that specific aspect of it. But yeah, so there's a lot of 1 bedrooms in this building, just because that is the challenge of it, is like trying to get as many units as we can and having bedrooms at the windows like people are used to. So that's, and the town really stepping up and taking that auditorium and the gym, those were the biggest ones, and utilizing those for the purpose that they were built for is what was missing on like all of the other projects that have really tried to happen here, so.
Yeah, I think we need housing, so that's great. And the perpetually affordable, what is that currently? What is the market rate for that? I know it changes every year, so I'm curious as to what it is this year.
I think that I would have to look at the HUD fair market
same.
rents, but it's in the 900 to like for a one bedroom or a studio. I know that there's like the 1 and 2 bedrooms are in the 11 and 1200 range, but then there's deductions for depending on the utilities that are included in rent and everything. So there's math that is involved based on how it's set up, which we've been using for our underwriting, but I just don't know them off the top of my head.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Great, thank you. Any other questions on this motion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, which is to approve the Select Board Chair to authorize the approval of the application for receiving emergency shelter or permanent supportive housing funds from the state of Vermont. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, just trying to, Tom, is your hand? I know, I can only move so fast. All those opposed, so it looks like I'm reading 5. All those opposed, please say nay. All right, and abstentions, please indicate. 2 abstentions, all right. All right. Thank you very much. I will sign this and get this to you.
Great, thank you. So Jeannie asked me to give an update, kind of higher level of what the role of community development is for the town, and then a breakdown of some of the particularly important partners in community development, and then the sources of grant funding. So I'm just going to give a very quick overview because I don't want to take too much more of your time. But we'll start with what is community development. Okay, community development is a big umbrella, but I thought this definition really was a simple and good explanation that community development builds upon local assets to increase the capacity of residents to improve both their social and economic conditions. So that is really the field of community development. Community development has been happening, since people have been on the planet, but as far as a field of study and a profession, it really grew out of the 1960s and kind of, the war on poverty and, Peace Corps and VISTA and all of those good things. So the town Office of Community Development provides oversight of the municipality's efforts related to the advancement of the Bennington community in the areas of public health, recreation, the arts, housing, and economic vitality. I'm going to go to the next one. And the Community Development Director identifies and secures grant funding that aligns with the town's development goals. These are outlined in our town plan, as well as multiple avenues for citizen participation, such as, our citizen surveys, et cetera, and manages grant reporting. I also administer the town's revolving loan programs and the marketing program. And I'm the town's liaison to many state and federal agencies related to community and economic development. So in the past 5 years since I've been in the role, the town has secured over $10 million in grant funding that's flowed through the town's community development office for projects that improve the Bennington community at no extra cost to Bennington taxpayers. That's important because all of our municipal budget is really coming, for the most part, from our tax base. So this grant funding is above that. So that includes over $5 million for economic development projects, for over $4 million for housing developments, over $700,000 for recreation improvements, over $100,000 for COVID relief, and $80,000 for municipal planning efforts. So here's some, I don't have that many pretty pictures, but here's a few the Riverwalk improvements here with the new pathway, the Putnam Block, of course. I love this aerial photo. And then the just about to open the Squire House Recovery Housing Project in partnership with Shires Housing. So some of the main sources of grant funding are community development block grants. These are for both housing and for economic development. And these come from the federal government, from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, but they're administered through the state's community development program. So the way that that works is only municipalities can apply for these, and then they're sub-granted to our partners, because obviously we're not building housing, but we partner with other organizations such as Shires Housing and Hale Resources to apply for the funds, and then they're sub-granted to these projects. And the economic development really is focused on particularly eliminating blight, so vacant buildings, creating jobs, and focused on our most low-income, parts of town, which really is our downtown area. So that's where that bucket comes from. Congressionally directed spending is a newer source of funding that's really important. In the past, these were called federal earmarks. Then they went away, and it was really Senator Leahy from Vermont who helped to bring them back as the chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee. So that was, I think, 3 years ago that they came back on the scene. And the way that that works is that community projects really, there's each of our delegations. So, Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator Welch, Peter Welch, and then Representative Becca Balint have on their website or through their office, it's usually around March that you can apply for a community project. So these have to be nominated. It's a very competitive process. And then they are directly awarded funding from the federal government. But it's a long process, because the way that it works is you apply, you kind of put your application out into the ether, and then all of the staff of these delegations look at those, they rate them, they nominate projects, really based on the amount of community participation. That seems to be a big piece of that nomination, and then the partnerships that are there. And then that goes back to the Senate committees, and the federal government has to pass all of their budget for those projects to be awarded the funding. So it's like usually a year-long process. And in those cases, the select board they don't require select board approval to apply in the same way that some of the community development, I come before you and ask for a resolution, et cetera, because it is a really different process, and there's not a state agency that's overseeing those funds. Those really are coming directly from Washington, D.C., and it depends upon the project, sort of where that bucket of funding will fall. In the case of the funds that the town has been awarded, that's been economic development and job creation, so it's coming through HUD. And I'm really happy that now the money that's coming through Becca Balint for Ben High is the same program that I already learned through HUD, because each of these grant reporting systems has like a different portal that you have to learn, and just even talking to, having to communicate to, HUD in Washington, D.C. is not the simplest process, but I'm learning how to do it, and it's an amazing opportunity for Bennington that, if there are projects to nominate potentially every year. We haven't gotten any funding from Bernie Sanders, so if you have good ideas, you should keep that in mind. So that's congressionally directed spending. And then another source of funding, which is also very competitive, so I wouldn't put it on a regular source of funding for us, but that we just received, was the Northern Border Regional Commission funding. So that's a federal-state partnership for economic and community development within the most distressed counties of Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and New York. So we also just received $1 million from NBRC for the Ben High project. that funding is also really focused on job creation. So that's why the focus of that application was on the child care center, because not only is it creating new jobs for the employees, but think of all the people who can go back to work because they have really quality child care. So that was a big win for Bennington to get one of those grants. And then another source of funding that's been really great to just amazing for recreation more recently is the Downtown Transportation Fund. And as Jeannie was talking about, the fact that Bennington has, through the Better Bennington Corporation, a designated downtown makes us have access to these funds like the Downtown Transportation Fund that we wouldn't have otherwise. So it's really important that we support the BBC and that we partner with them because it gives us access to other state resources, and we've been able to secure almost $500,000 in downtown transportation funding over the last few years. And it sounds funny because it says transportation, but really the focus is improving access to amenities in your downtown, right? And so that's why the skate park and that connection to our pathway system was something that they awarded with that funding. If you want to go to the next slide. So some of our community development partners, and there's so many that there's no way I could even begin to list all of our partners, but really the bedrock of community development is people. You know, it's the Bennington people. And so every project that I've been a part of since I started this job has had such a dedicated people involved. I mean, that is the core. So many of those people are volunteers, also community organizations and local businesses. Other partners in economic and community development are the Better Bennington Corporation, the Bennington County Regional Commission, and then the Chamber of Commerce. And then our state partners, the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, they have, I don't know, 5 different programs within that agency, but we work really closely with the Department of Housing and Community Development on those community development block grants. Also community planning and revitalization, so all of the municipal planning grants that we get. They also have some new grant programs, like the one that we secured for Ben High for pre-development was a new program from that department. And then the downtown program that I mentioned, and that Jeannie talked about as well. And then other important community partners that are really working at the state level and regional level are the Vermont Community Foundation, which is pooling philanthropic dollars, but they have a real focus on certain regions, and so we work closely with Elizabeth Marks, who's the Southern Vermont person for the Vermont Community Foundation, and then also the Vermont Council on Rural Development. They are a statewide organization that really helps with planning and resource development, and they actually just asked me to be on their board. So I am now the vice chair of that board, and what's great about that is learning what other communities are doing. It's very inspiring. So like this trip that we took to Bellows Falls, or as part of the VCRD board retreat, I went to Springfield, Vermont, and saw what they're doing with their downtown. So having that kind of connection to other communities across the state, I think is really important, both to learn from, but also those connections with state agencies who are part of that board is important for Bennington. We're often sort of left out of the dialogue because we're down in our corner, so I think it's important that we engage with all those partners. And then our congressional delegation that I just talked about as well. So that was I'm sorry I spoke pretty quickly, but I wanted to get through that and then just see if you have any more questions. I'm also happy to meet, to dig into some of these grants in more detail. Sometimes it's easier to meet one-on-one as well.
Thank you very much. Anyone on the board have any questions?
Yes.
You're nodding your head. Go ahead.
Yes, I do. It's a conundrum here. These grants, when they're available, who actually initiates the processing these grants? Is it specific organizations, or is it something your office initiates and then solicits or contacts other organizations about the funds?
Well, I think it depends on, there's a lot of different, in the case of recreation, so like the Riverwalk, that's town property. So that's something that I'm initiating in partnership with town staff, the BBC, other partners. But in the case of community-led initiatives, it's usually coming from those organizations coming to me and to the town, saying, we see this opportunity for funding.
Okay, interesting. That brings me in, slides right into my other question.
Clark, it's hard.
Interestingly, that brings me into my other question I had. You specifically cited town projects, and then you cited projects for partners, nonprofits, however you want to identify these people. How much of your time or your department's time and effort is spent on processing grants and projects that are non-town projects?
That's kind of a tricky question. I mean,
I know.
So I don't have a breakdown of exactly how I spend all of my time, but I think, it's also, I think the question is, what is a town project? This is a role. The community development director is part of the town staff that's been here since the, I don't know, Stu, the 80s? How long has this role been?
Yeah, late 70s, early 80s.
Right. So the role in itself is to help, kind of be a spur for funding, but also coalition building in the community. So that is the town. When you're talking about just town property, that's different.
Well, you specifically cited the Riverwalk.
Yeah, because the town owns that.
Okay, the town, in the sense of town as in people or town as a functional element of government. That is what I think needs to be differentiated in my mind.
Right. Well, so what I'm saying is my department is small. It's really me, and then Jonah now is our communication coordinator, but it is a department of the town. But my role is really to be working with partners and doing outreach into the community. So some of that funding and those projects will focus on town property, right? But many of the initiatives will be beyond that.
As you said, you mentioned.
Can I give an example?
Ahead.
Can I give an example? Because so we just learned that we got a grant on, I guess, the day before, on July 3rd. Because this town was invited to be part of Ideal Vermont, which is a statewide initiative which brings communities together that are looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion issues. And Dan and I are the representatives to that. We had an opportunity for some grant funding through the Vermont Community Foundation, and the town had to be the applicant. But we, put it out there that, these grants were available, and that if anyone had any ideas to let us know. So ECDC, Ethiopian Community Development Council, approached us about doing a community mural painting with 2 follow-up events. I worked with Jack, and he wrote a grant, and we submitted it, and we got $10,000 for that mural painting and follow-up events. It will flow through Shannon because only a municipality was allowed to apply, even though the understanding was that it was for the good of the community and not for a town initiative particularly. Right. So in that case, Shannon will be the person, they'll actually send a $10,000 check, which isn't all that usual, but because it's Vermont Community Foundation, they'll just cut a check, and then as ECDC and the Multicultural Center use those funds, they will submit receipts. So that's going to take Shannon's time to do that, but it's community building. And so it's money coming to the town to bring people to the town to both participate in the painting and also bringing the community together and involving the Bennington Museum, SVSU, the library, other partners too that I'm not thinking of right now. So the YMCA. So that it's going to take some of Shannon's time, and we don't get the money, but we get the benefit.
Right, exactly. Another way to think about it too, Clark, is when you look at our town plan, which is developed by our planning commission, and it sets goals, right? So part of my role is to be focused on what are those goals that are set for community and economic development in our planning process, and how do we achieve those as a community, and what role can the town play to also access funding that is unique to municipalities. So in the case of this funding that I just asked for the resolution for, municipalities have a priority when they apply, so that actually kind of makes it more likely that you can get the funding. And that's true of many grants, because if you think about capacity, it's hard. I mean, especially most smaller towns don't even have someone in my role. So to have that capacity in your town to administer this funding is really important, because it can add so much more than what you can do, without these grants, right? So, I mean, I guess that's why I'm here, is to be trying to bring in whatever resources we can, right? Especially that are being led by the Bennington community.
Well, in my mind, which some people might think is simple, I see there's a distinct difference between town governments in operation versus the town serving as a pass-through for funding for other entities that are not governmental entities. We have elements of the town government committed to providing a funding source or processing for funds to support these non-governmental entities. I've had extensive experience working in rural communities in Alaska, where grant funding is pretty much their lifeblood. But one of the things that struck me when I dealt with these organizations is there was actually requirements for management fees to be paid by these organizations for the use or services provided by these governmental entities. And I don't see that as something that happens here. And I personally think that's something we need to look at, that if we're using town employees and assets. And in a brief conversation I had with Mr. Hurd, he described at least, I think, besides you, 2 other government or town functions that get involved in this. So there is, in my mind, in my observation, significant use of government or town funds and staff, and I think these entities that are benefiting from this should have some skin in the game, so to speak. But we'll move on. You mentioned, I think you said $5 million in economic benefits in the last 5 years, and then I saw your sign from the NBRC that clearly differentiated between community development and economic development.
It clearly
go back to your screen and go back and it says
it just said
to the NBRC.
NBRC, I think I just pulled that off of their website.
But right, that's what I'm saying. Would you go back
to the grant sources, Jonah?
Right.
That is their definition. That is what the Northern Border Regional Commission calls it.
But I'm saying it clearly differentiates between economic and community development. You were telling me they're one and the same, and your role is one and the same. I think in the classic sense that, in fact, economic development and community development are not one and the same. And yes, a healthy economy will clearly lead to community development. But I think we need to acknowledge that they're not one and the same, that they are in fact two distinct pathways.
Yeah, I didn't say that they were one and the same. I said that community development is community-led development.
Well, again, I look back at some of the documents and I see the economic development disappeared from your departmental name. I saw a town plan where they listed economic and community development, and subsequent to that, I only see community development.
And I do know that in the manager's report, Stu actually did address that. So, I mean, I don't, either you could go to that now if you want to do that.
Yes,
Stuart,
sure.
do you want to address that?
I'd be glad to. Yes, in fact, when the department was first created, it was considered to be the Economic and Community Development Department. And it stayed that way through a number of individuals who held the position. When the Putnam building or Putnam block was under consideration, and they were going through their funding iterations, the Bennington County Regional Commission, which is the Regional Planning Commission, the RPC, also became designated as the RDC, the Regional Development Corporation. And at that point, the town made the decision to remove the term economic from its department heading and focus our efforts on community-directed development or community-led development, as opposed to focusing on economic development, and let the RDC, which has access to a whole host of funding regimes and opportunities throughout the state that municipalities don't necessarily have, and let them lead from the economic development side, which is to try to attract businesses or industries into the community that create jobs. And we let them do that or stepped aside to allow them to focus on that, while we focused on the community-led developments, which are much more at hand, much more hands-on for all of us that work for the town, and as well as the select board, I believe.
Well, I was saving that for manager report, but now that you brought it up, do you or can you provide us a status report on specific actions taken by the RDC? I've not seen any documents or read any articles about their efforts or actions to actually increase or bring businesses into this town.
So Bill Colvin did come as director of BCRC several months ago. It was before you were on the board, but you were here, I remember. You're sitting right there. And did give us an update. They are, you can always sit down with them. We can invite Bill to come back. I mean, I think it's probably been less than 6 months since he was here. But
their minutes are posted.
And their minutes are posted. But he's been here twice. He came once and then came back 2 months later for the April meeting for Career Month. So he must have been here like February. But we can certainly, that is absolutely their job, and they can absolutely share information, either publicly or, one-on-one. Bill's very approachable.
I did also just want to address one other point that Clark made about administrative fees coming to the town out of grant applications. So given that I already have a salary from the town, we don't take an administrative fee for my time because we want to put all of those funds back into the community projects. But we do always take out a $5,000 fee for the federal audit. And we have a rigorous financial department that we do a federal audit every year of grant funds, and we do allocate funds from grants for that process.
Other questions? Yes, Nancy.
It's very concerning to watch the focus be taken off of our town. The focus has been taken off economic development. If I'm hearing that the BCRC is in charge of our economic development, they shouldn't be. I remember when they had the BCIC, they went out and worked. started facilities. We had businesses out in Old Bennington where they were going to get new businesses started, and it sounded great, and they had the small jobs created, and I don't know what happened. The jobs I'm seeing created are basically minimum wage, a little bit what we need to be looking for. We need the small manufacturer. We need somebody who can pay good pay and benefits so we can get away from the government housing. I think of what Burlington used to be, and I just was talking to somebody from Burlington today who's leaving Burlington, a young person. I said, what's it like? I don't go there after dark. She talked about a couple of issues. And I mean, 40 years ago, that was like the #1 smallest college town in the country, small city. And I think in Bennington, many of us see it. It's more we're going to chase the grants for the social programs and get more people tied to the government than getting people up and being independent. And to have listened for the past 2 years that, we in our town are responsible for the people in the county. No, we're not. The other towns need to step up, and it's concerning to watch groups that are funded for the county that can't go out, afford to work in the county, so they want to bring people to Bennington. All that's going to do is pull us down. We want to get people lifted up. We want people independent. We don't need a steady stream of people coming every year. When it comes to budget time, and, I complain about the budget, I think there's a real disconnect with a lot of people on this board. The people who have to get their wallets out and pay their water and sewer and their taxes, when you add up, dollar for dollar what some people are getting with a lot of assistance, they're probably farther ahead than that person working 40 days a week.
Nancy, one, that is your personal opinion, and two, you are here for budget time, and that is your opportunity as a select board member. When we have budget time, if there's something that you want to change, that is when that is done. So can we go back to this presentation, because we are actually really behind time.
When we're looking for jobs, the jobs that came to the Putnam block, and that was a concern I asked about from day one, private sector jobs, good pay and benefits.
Is this to do with Shannon?
Well, I mean, she's going to be doing government-type jobs, and I would just remind you, we're paying you to work for the town, for the people of Bennington, and before you go out on any grant, I would ask that you come here, so at least we know what you're thinking about for projects. I'm very concerned that you work with different groups and decide what you want to do before the public hears anything about it.
Well, that's not how it works, Nancy. I report on every project that I'm working on every month to the select board, and you're free to ask any questions. Most grants that I'm applying for, I am coming before the board and asking just to be able to apply. So nothing's happening in secret. Nothing's, everything, there's a process for it, and it's usually many people involved who are working really, really hard to make things happen.
And I would suggest if the public isn't reading, Shannon does a monthly report, Shannon and Jonah both do monthly reports, as does the police department, and that is a wealth of information. So if you haven't been reading those, please do, because that's a great way to know what's going on.
But I have
All right, so anything else on this?
Could we have her come in once a month and just give us a 10-minute what you're looking at?
It's in that she does that once a month. There is a full-page report once a month in your packet.
Okay,
every single month.
So you want the general public to all go to the town website?
No. You just asked if she can come in. There's a report once a month. If you have a question, you know how to get hold of Shannon.
The general public is aware of it.
Nancy, you were asking the questions for yourself. I'd like to get back to the presentation.
Yeah, which I think was a great overview, and I hope it's very clear. I clearly misspoke at the last meeting, thinking that, and I should have recognized, because that's exactly what just happened with the Vermont Community Foundation Award, is that if the town is part of the flow but is not actually receiving some of that funding, then we don't need to approve it or accept the funds, because they're not our funds. It's the community
And as I
fund.
said, anytime anyone wants to talk to me about a particular project, if you have questions about my report that you receive in your packet, come and talk to me at the town office anytime or send me an email.
Thank you.
I have another point, please.
Okay, go ahead.
What I'd be very interested in, and I guess maybe I can come see you, I would like to know a grant train. Are there grant trains that specifically address economic health projects? You know, I've got all about community development and some of these various social issues, but I'd like to know, is there a grant program that you may be aware of or that you can point me toward where we can use the funding or activities to generate interest of businesses and entities to come to our town and establish themselves or expand in our town?
Well, there is actually. It's a bit of a mouthful, but you've probably heard it when Bill Colvin came to present about what the BCRC is doing, but they're really leading this process along with the Brattleboro Development Corporation, which is the RDC over in Windham County, and working on this. It's called the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategies for all of Southern Vermont. I know Jeannie and some others were on that committee to really form. It's called the SEDS process. And so by pooling together across both counties, that creates a larger population pool to make the whole area eligible for economic development funding from the federal government, because part of our problem in Vermont is we're just so small. And so we really have never been able to access some of that funding for just what you're talking about. But now we have a process to do that, and they have a whole report that you could read that prioritizes kind of just what you're talking about. How do we attract larger businesses? How do we attract manufacturing? How do we increase our population? There's a lot of work that's being done on that right now. We don't have the money in hand yet, but we're working towards that process to really be able to fund much larger economic development projects across Southern Vermont. So I would encourage you to read that report and talk to Bill Colvin or Jonathan Cooper about it.
I would encourage you and other elements of town government to actually latch on to that and bring those people to see us, where you can come to us and say, hey, I understand RC is looking at this, and this, or if you become aware of something that might be a potential benefit for this town, to point them in that direction and get them involved. Because you're right, I remember that gentleman did come here, but I can honestly say I don't remember standing up and saying that we've gone to X number of industry organizations and spoken to them about the benefits of coming to this town or the efforts they've taken to bring those people to this town. And that's what I and other people I've spoken to are quite interested in, having a voice, a loud voice representing the town of Bennington, going out and soliciting businesses and individuals to come to our community, invest in our community, expand their operations in this community. And I would like to see town governance as part of that loud voice.
Zach, I think you had asked to speak.
Thanks, Jeannie. Is this working? Oh, perfect. Okay, so Zach Hale, Bennington, and so I just wanted to point out that as a developer, I've actually worked with 3 different municipalities, going to them, asking for funding for a specific project, and have received funding through some funding source that I was not able to access on my own. It had to go through a municipality, and all of those projects are something that money is going to be spent on something that just like would not make economic sense for me as an investor or a developer had I not gotten those funds. And so, and when it comes to developers looking at a specific community that they can then go and invest in, if you want to talk about marketing, it is the relationship that could be had with the municipality and the developer that is attracting people right now, right? There are so many possibilities when you have a municipality on board with your development. And in fact, some funding that I can go for, they don't require the municipality to be the one applying, but they require a letter of support from the municipality in order to even be competitive in that process. And BCRC is the same way because they have a more regional plan. And so I can't stress enough that like these conversations here and the work, having somebody like Shannon is a marketing aspect of trying to bring people here, and then that collaboration that's happening, like Ben High, is going to be a big, in addition to the economic growth and prosperity it can bring, like, for example, childcare. The amount of childcare that we don't have but need, there's federal government, like federal agencies that put economic values of like $18 million over 10 years that we're missing out on from people not going to work, and kids having impacted lives of like not being taken care of properly, like, all of these different things that I just don't know enough about. But it's incredible how tied together the economic and the community development is. It's just like it is one and the same. You can't have one without the other, and that you're doing both when you're doing it. And I also just want to point out that like when it comes to Ben High, like this project doesn't happen without having someone like Shannon, because I'm working as much as I can on this project, and then Shannon like all of a sudden pulls all of this weight and provides like all of this support and assistance in these grants. But then I also find out she's like just found all this money for a skate park too. It's like, what? Like I don't even know how you're doing all of these things. So it's like, it's incredible that the town has someone like this, and that is what's going to attract the businesses, and we just got to keep working hard to make that happen. So I'll leave it there, but it's incredible what the town does, and I think there's a lot of eyes on Bennington right now with the work and progress that has been made over the years, because there's so many people committed and are behind the scenes, and maybe you don't always hear about it, but when the project like Putnam happens and you realize Bill Colvin worked on that for 20 years, like to make that happen, it was a vision he always had, and he found a path forward. It's like, it's just unbelievable, those stories. So.
Well said, Zach. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Anything else, or can we thank you very, very much for really elucidating this?
I just have one comment.
Okay, go ahead.
Shannon, what I think some of our colleagues maybe are realizing tonight for the first time, or need to be reminded on a regular basis, each and every project that you brought before this board, in my experience, sitting out there, watching from home, and sitting at this table, has a strong economic development piece to it. You bring products and services, people will come. You bring people, they need products and services. That is the most elementary way in my mind.
And they need housing.
There you go.
Yeah.
So thank you for all that you do and for this presentation tonight.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Shannon. All right. Next up, we have the Select Board Rules of Procedures, first reading. So this came about, this is for many, many years, and I have no idea how many. It probably predates my being in Bennington. We have had rules of procedure that we just followed. They are essentially Robert's rules with a little bit of flexibility. So it's Robert's rules for smaller boards. The Vermont League of Cities and Towns put together a template watching small boards struggle with rules of procedure and tried to sort of pull in things like open meeting law, best practices that they were seeing elsewhere, as well as the fundamentals of Robert's rules. So what you have, what we have in our packet is basically VLCT's template with the town of Bennington's name added where appropriate. And I think what is very comforting is that it is very similar to what we already do, if not identical to what we already do. And for me, I think something that was really important that I never really thought about being something we missed by not having something written down was, unfortunately these pages are not numbered, but in section 4, number 20, so it's actually the last statement before the public participation part. So it's actually in section 4, which is motions and voting. It says the failure of the body to strictly adhere to any provisions of this section will not invalidate any action taken unless such action was taken by less than the majority of the total membership of the board or some other standard as specified by state law, which for me feels important because it says that if we make an error, as long as we are not violating the basic principle of making sure majority rules, then, then it can't be invalidated. And I'm just thinking there was an incident in Rutland with a school board a couple years ago where a whole decision got thrown out because of a very, absolutely a technicality on how they took the vote. So for me, I think that is actually a very good reason to have something in writing that actually allows us to know that, if we make an error, then as long as we're working in good faith and following the basic principles, we're okay. So this is a first reading. This is a draft. This is for us to consider. And so I'm going to open the floor and just say anyone that has any questions, comments, concerns, have at it. So anyone? Yes, Jean.
I was just a little confused. It's section 5, public participation.
Yeah.
Number 12. I'm not clear on the different, I'm clear in my head, but I'm not sure if this document is clear. Public comment, the public can speak to anything that's not on the agenda. And then there seems to be a designation for public participation, which is, I think what they mean is participation on a specific agenda item.
Yeah, I guess we could say public comment on an agenda item must be germane to that item. Is that?
I think on the same issue, I looked at item 12 there in section 5, and I flipped over to item 16 on the next page.
Okay.
And there seems to be a little confusion there.
Oh, okay, so 16 is specifically talking about public comment for things not on the the agenda.
It just needs some clarity, that's all.
Okay, so 12 needs to say public comment on an agenda item.
I think that clarifies issues because it appears that they both contradict each other.
Okay, so if it says public comment on an agenda item must be germane to that item, does that fix it?
Is that what they meant? I don't...
Yeah, so they're trying to distinguish that on an agenda item, that if the agenda item is sidewalk repair, you can't then start talking about potholes on the street or the curbing.
Maybe it would help if there was a subheading under public participation, meaning public comment, the rules for that, and public participation on an agenda item. Maybe that would be helpful.
So what your public comment and agenda items. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we can do that. All right. All right. So we'll try and so besides 12 and 16, are there other items that are unclear?
Just a question.
Yeah.
And I'm just got to pull this up on my mouth so you can hear me. So this is just VLCT's copy with the town of Bennington put in the top?
Pretty much. We added the liaison position because a lot of, and there's a typo in number 6 as a result.
Okay.
But we added liaison positions because not all communities do that.
Okay.
And otherwise, yes.
Anything else added or omitted?
Yes, there was a section in here that said that all people should be addressed, all select board members had to be addressed by their last name.
Okay, that was omitted.
By their last name?
Mm-hmm, you would have to be Ms. White.
Well, this,
So I took that out because we don't do that. Okay, so yeah, so I took, yeah, so, and I think, yeah, it was that it had to be, you had to formally address people as Ms. or Mr. So I took that out.
did anybody from Bennington ask for this to be drawn up, or is this something they came up with?
This is, so as a member of VLCT, if you get a password, you can go into their secret store of information, and this is a template that they have for all communities to use. Okay. So that's where this came from. And so what they tried, so most communities do have this, I'm told by VLCT that most communities have adopted a formal set of rules of procedure. You know, we've just been doing it, we have, so it's probably time we do.
I think we should.
Yeah, I agree. So, yeah, I can send you the template.
No, I've been on their website before.
Okay. Yeah, but Sarah, I mean, you asked that question. If you want to see their template, I can send it to you. It basically has little brackets where you put in.
I guess if I have a question, if something is actually state law and something they're just throwing out there, that's what I want to clarify.
I think the piece, so for instance, number 20 in section 4, I think that is, I think that, Dan, maybe you can correct me on this, but I think if it states that, then that becomes part of your rules and you get away with it. But I think as we saw in Rutland when they were looking at the mascot vote and the school board was overturned because of a technicality and they didn't have anything apparently.
Usually when there's a state law, that they put the number of the law.
So what they're trying to do is not be that kind of formal thing. So what they've done, so for instance, if you look at the section on meetings, this is when you need to call things, what's an emergency meeting, what's a special meeting, this all comes from state law.
But the time of the meeting was arrived at, right? Our meetings are at 6 p.m.
Oh, yeah, that's us. Yeah. But
so
what is a
that's why-
special meeting? What is how long before? When you have to, the 5-day, you have to have minutes available 5 days after the meeting. That's all state law. But what they've done is try and make this a usable document. So they didn't include any of that. So we don't need to either.
I don't know why including that would make it not usable.
Well, I didn't ask. I mean, it's just
It's
this
just
is
a
the
perception?
template they have.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think it's because it's up, maybe because it's up in the top. This is required by law to conduct its meetings following the Vermont open meeting law, and then it gives a statute, and then it defines what a meeting is, and it gives the reference again, and then it says they must be open to the people, and then it gives that reference again. So I think what they did was cover it in the purpose statement.
And then the purpose of this document is to help us to organize and govern ourselves, setting procedure, yeah.
Yeah, in a standard way, and so that we all, so, And so, for instance, under public participation, no member of the public may speak longer than 3 minutes. Some communities have 1 minute in there. 3 minutes apparently is on the long end. So it could say 1 minute, it could say 2 minutes, it could say 3 minutes. And it's your choice.
So while people are thumbing through this, can I ask, the process is tonight's the first reading. people can take this with them, they can ask questions at the next reading, and we will be finalizing at the next meeting? Is that the intention?
The hope would be to finalize at the next meeting. I think if there are, I mean, we haven't asked public yet, we will in a sec, but if there are substantial changes at the next meeting, then we wouldn't finalize it probably.
We might have to go back.
Yeah, we might have to do a third reading.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, but I think for something, and I don't actually know if it says, it probably doesn't say this in here.
What?
This is a Tom Jacobs rule, that for anything that is sort of, we need to think about, we want to have at least 2 readings of it.
Yeah, that is a board rule, not necessarily.
That's a Tom Jacobs board.
Well, it's a board rule now.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying
can call it the Tom
we probably
Jacobs.
should add it to this because the LCT doesn't require it.
No, this document is prepared by the league to help municipalities run their meetings. That's really what it's for. This board can amend this in any way it sees fit. But it is...
As long as we're within the law.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it's a pretty good document as far as how meetings should be run by select boards in a given municipality in Vermont.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the document. I think it's very valuable. But my question is where, if there's pieces of the document that we can...
Okay, so any other elements that we want to address here? All right, hearing none, then we will bring it back. I'll send the template out to everybody, we'll fix the typo, and we'll look at public participation section and see if there's a way to have a public comment section and then comment on agenda items section.
I already have a suggestion if you wanted to hear it quickly.
Sure.
If you look at the several items before, it says members of the public must be acknowledged. Members of the public must wait their turn. Members of the public may comment on any agenda item.
Where are you?
Number 12, members of the public may comment on any item on the agenda. If you follow number 10, 11, and write 12 in the same way, you get away from the idea of public comment versus public comment.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So members of the public.
Members of the public may comment on any item on the agenda.
No, that's not what this is saying. It's germane. That's the issue. But yeah, okay,
let's
but
assume
we'll
that-
rephrase it. Okay.
Let's assume
okay.
that people are making a germane comment.
Okay, no, but that's the point. Okay, all right, so
Okay.
we'll rewrite that.
Something
one.
like that.
Okay, perfect, okay. All right, are we ready to move on from this?
Could we table the next one? Seeing as it's 8:45 and we did a social media policy,
Let's do a first reading.
We warned it, we have to do it.
Yeah, so, and if we change the agenda, we need to do that, like at the beginning of the meeting.
I hear you, though. I hear you.
So, I mean, yeah, we're all tired, so.
May I offer a comment? Ma'am, a motion to table is a legitimate motion.
Okay.
Oh, you're right. Okay. So, all right. So let's, does that motion have a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Discussion.
I understand where you're coming from.
As you need to, would you like to say something?
well, I just, we have a lot of critical things we talk about, and I think we have to think about the time rather than putting 8 things on an agenda because we're going to be here every night until 10 o'clock. So I would just ask for less topics that we know we're going to have big discussions on because it's the discussions that are the important part, not putting 8 things on an agenda.
All right. Anyone else have any comments?
Yeah, I would not like to table this right now, but if possible, I would like to ask maybe in the future if something is going to go this long, maybe.
Next meeting, the agenda's short.
Yeah.
I can tell you that the agenda is, the setting process keeps those things in mind. These things are not on here because we were trying to keep the meeting going until 10 o'clock.
Oh, I totally understand that.
A bunch of things got pushed to this meeting.
Some of these things, they needed the time for the discussion. I thought we'd probably be here probably till 9:30 tonight.
So let's not have that conversation, but all right, other conversation, other discussion?
Do you know the motion on the table, Jean? The motion on the table is to table the next topic.
The social
agenda
media
item.
policy.
Yep, we haven't gotten a vote on it yet.
So, and it was brought by Nancy and seconded by Clark.
I second it, but on the whole issue of time, I was elected to do the people's business. If I didn't want to spend time here, I probably shouldn't have run for office. That's my position.
Agreed.
I agree.
Agreed. I would like to delve into this. I don't know that it mirrors, so Jonah was the primary author of this policy. It follows closely the staff, what the staff is required to do, and it is, again, a policy that we should have in place, that we don't. Jonah, I don't know if you were prepared to share some stuff?
Yeah, Jeannie, we haven't resolved the motion.
Okay, but...
discussion, though.
Okay, but you're right. But I guess part of the discussion was, were you planning to do...
I'm prepared to, but I need...
To go through it, okay. So I would like to do this, in part, I feel like it's something that's overdue, and second, I feel like it's useful for us to have a first thinking about this, because we have a board training next Monday with a VLCT recommended lawyer, right? He doesn't work.
Actually, it's a lawyer recommended by Merrill.
Oh, okay, a lawyer recommended by
But
Merrill.
he has worked for passive and VLC.
And it feels to me like it would be helpful for us to start grappling with any issues that there are in here in the same way that we should be grappling with procedures, so that when we meet with, this attorney's name is Jim Carroll, it's different Jim Carroll, that we can, that may raise some questions for us in terms of how we work as a board. So that's why I would really that's why I wanted to keep it on the agenda. Anyone else have thoughts?
I agree with you. My only concern is that if we've lost a board member or two's interest because of the time, are we going to be lacking in focus?
I think that's valid, but honestly, speaking as someone who would rather go home and lie in an ice pack right now, this is more important than that. I would rather continue the business of the town. I think that takes precedence. That's why we're here, as Clark said. That's why we ran for this board, and I hear you that sometimes meetings go late, and you can't always predict what topics are going to bring up the longest conversations. And I just think, I know you guys do the best you can do to keep the agendas to a manageable time limit, but some things are just unpredictable. So I think the town's business takes what the town's business takes, and that's why we're here.
And this is the work for the people. This is part of the important stuff, so.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just wanted to mention that because I know after about an hour and a half, the best decisions are not made.
I agree.
Yeah.
Thank goodness it's a first reading.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
No, I agree with you. None of us are going to be as sharp as we were at 6:30 this afternoon.
But I think that's good that we're going to go through this, hopefully, and bring that to yes, like I said, our best decisions and our best wording is not made after about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, yeah. Jean, you want to weigh in on this? Okay. All right, if that's all the discussion, then those that want to, we have to put this in positive, right? Those motion to table, that was the motion that was made. Okay. All those in favor of tabling the social media policy, please say aye and raise your hand. Okay, Jean? What? You're wanting to table it?
Table it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and all those in favor of not tabling the social media policy, please raise your hand. No, please, no. Those that want, wow, I can't do this. Those that want,
Those that want to continue.
no, I have to do the motion. Those that are opposed to tabling.
Yes.
I thought we're not supposed to do negative motions.
Well, no, the motion is to table. You have
Okay,
those
all right.
in
So
favor,
all,
those who are
those that do not want to, okay, you know what?
We'd be halfway through the policy.
So yay is to table, nay is to not table.
Okay, nay is to not table. Not table. Nay.
Okay.
Who have we got?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got 5.
5, okay. Anybody abstaining from this?
I guess I should raise my hand first.
Nancy, you
huh?
have to do something.
First one.
So 2 in favor, 5 opposed, motion fails.
I'll stay till midnight, that's fine with me.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Nancy Lively, did you got that? I think so.
I remember it anyway, so.
All right, okay, so we're now taking up the social media policy. Jonah, please take it away.
Good evening, I'm Jonah Spivak, Communications Coordinator for the Town of Bennington. I was tasked by the Select Board to come up with a draft social media policy to cover the Town of Bennington elected officials and appointed boards, commissions, and committees. To do so, I referred to what other towns around Vermont are doing for their social media policies. I also referred to models provided by the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, and I also just did a little research on my own as well. I'm going to go through this pretty briefly and instead give the time to any questions you may have. I think the most important thing to say about this, that this is a document for the Select Board. It can be whatever you want it to be. I'm providing here a draft template, but ultimately this is your document and it could and should reflect whatever it is you'd like to accomplish with this. Two things stuck out to me as being quite important in this. Number one, nothing in this policy is meant to infringe upon state or federal constitutional rights. And I expand on this. Elected officials and appointees have their own First Amendment rights, including rights to speak about their role that they do not relinquish simply by becoming a public official. However, elected officials and appointees should take care that they do not give the impression that they are speaking on behalf of the municipality when they are not empowered to do so. We are fortunate that the Supreme Court has recently ruled on pretty much exactly this matter, and they go on to clarify that in order for an official or appointee's social media post to be attributable to the municipality, it has to pass 2 points. One, being that the person possesses actual authority to speak on behalf of the town, and two, purporting to exercise that authority when they spoke on social media. I then go on to list, I think more than a dozen clarifications that roll out from that. And I guess I would just maybe mention a couple, and then I'd be happy to return to these in more detail if that's the desire of the board. But number one, including a qualifying statement to a post saying that the views are my own, effectively meets that that challenge that the Supreme Court put out. Likewise, you must not state or imply that your posts are an official policy statement, position, or communication of the town, and that seems pretty much like common sense. A universal disclaimer on a person's social media account or website shall be regarded as sufficient, and that's pretty great for protecting First Amendment rights. And they even go on to say that a failure to having a disclaimer like that on your bio or website does not independently violate that policy. So I could go on, but those were the things that felt the most important to me. That is all in Section 1 of this policy. Section 2 is really just some common sense considerations using personal social media use, and this does mirror things that we as employees also take care of in our social media interactions. And at that point, I'd be happy to go on, but I will instead defer to the Select Board for their thoughts.
Super, thank you very much. That was very helpful. Questions from the board or comments? Yes, go Jean.
Is it possible, or should we add a requirement to revisit this policy at some interval because of the ridiculously quickly changing landscape of social media?
The short answer, was that directed to me? Or?
Yeah, anyone.
The short answer is this is your document. It can be revisited at whatever time frame you would suggest, although I note that in the definitions, I do talk about some of the general terms such as what is social media, what is an appointee, what is an elected official, and those are intentionally vague to allow for the emergence of other types of websites or services in the future that we cannot foresee, and this policy would still cover that.
But to Jean's point, I'm thinking that most of our policies have some sort of, will be revisited, I'm making it up, 5 years, just so that there's some eyes on it every now and then.
So it's not parked forever.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, Stu, do you remember some of our other policies, I think, have like a time?
I think they do, and you can add a requirement to revisit on a 3 to 5 year basis, whatever you choose.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. But
3 or 5 years.
Did you?
So I was just going to, a general question, do we in the town have sunsetting provisions for whatever policies that are in place?
No.
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 Not unless the document says so.
Yeah, I
Not
don't
unless the
think,
what? Yeah.
Not unless the document says so.
Oh, okay, all right.
we don't have any that sunset though, right?
At the present time, we do not.
Yeah. I'd rather revisit than sunset. Yeah, because sunset means that then you have to bring it up as a new policy again. And
Start over again building it.
Right, and I think the point here is that there's a need for a social media policy at both staff and board level, so.
Agreed.
And maybe the language should not be a specific, or it could say in 5 years or sooner if necessary. Because we just don't know what's going to happen.
Well, and I think that may be the language, so we can look at, Stuart, maybe we can look at the language and others, because I think it is revisit no less than, 5 years or sooner, or whatever that language is. There's some kind of fancy way of saying that.
I will take a look.
Okay, all right. Putting your name by it, okay. Did you see any language to that effect in other communities?
I do not recall seeing that.
Okay, all right. So your sense is that the language is expansive enough that, if X becomes Twitter again, we're not in trouble, and the terminology is.
Well, that specific example is a great one for what is vague about this, but having or adding a qualification to revisit after a period of years would be a simple thing to add.
So again, I think what we're looking for now is if there are, big areas like what Jean just brought up, that we want to make sure that we come back for the second reading with, let's go for it. I mean, it works for me, I don't use social media, so it's.
I think at the very end, you're going to have to be a little more specific there.
About what? Policy
violation considerations. You may be censored, or you may have your appointment terminated, so.
So appointments cannot be terminated. Oh, yes. Select board, no, but otherwise, yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to note that The appointment terminated, that's just for appointees to boards and commissions. It does not refer to elected
not elected,
officials.
okay,
Yeah,
sorry,
great
didn't get
question,
that.
though. Yeah, it's
So-
an important distinction.
Yes, elected officials cannot be terminated. Well, I guess, unless they
Well,
can be
it would be,
recalled, but we cannot terminate them.
it would be according to rules established by the select board or the town charter regarding the actions of its members. And currently, there is,
The legislature took that up when we tried the last charter review, and they said no.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Not happening.
So we're really, that language is specific to appointees by the select board, or by the select board for boards and commissions in the town.
Rules of step, yeah. Do you have something, Nancy, was there something more specific that you were thinking about?
I'm just thinking what somebody would put on so you'd have to kick them off the board immediately.
That would be up to the select board, according to this.
No, but I just wondered if we should have like something, I guess there's so much in social media people could do, you couldn't really.
May be censured, and the key word there is may, which I think means that if something happened, it would come before this board for deliberation. Right? Am I right?
Correct.
Yeah, it might just be better
So
to
Nancy, I think we
leave it
have the
that way,
ability
yep.
then.
Yeah.
The question I have is, I think, since this is applicable, you said not just to us, but town employees in general?
Not town employees.
But, okay. But, we talk about...
It's appointees, and elected officials. So the staff, we already, we were told about your social media policy.
No, but,
Yeah,
so, that provisions, what do you call it, progressive disciplinary action provisions, that those don't apply under these circumstances.
They can apply.
But I mean, something like that might be a little more in
So
keeping
there
with what
is-
Nancy said, kind of clarifying things that, it's a progressive thing, some innocent mistakes versus blatantly, doing
Well, but-
crazy stuff.
But then you
Call
get
for
back
different
what
levels
Ed
of
said.
intervention. That's why I was thinking more along the lines like a progressive.
Yeah, I don't think we need
disciplinary
to
type.
spell it out. I
Okay,
mean, yeah.
all right, well, that's the only thing that pops to mind to clarify
Yeah.
what I thought Nancy's concerns were.
No, but it made sense. You may be, so.
The key word there is
You may be warned
you may
or
be
worse.
censured and then this board would have the ability to discuss it.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, this feels really tight and feels very thorough to me. I'm not a social media person, so I don't know that I would know if there were holes in it, but it feels good that you've looked at other communities as well as VLCT.
This is good, Jonah, because I've read and written a number of these, but not with the municipality glasses on, and I know you did that. So I agree with what Jeannie just said.
Thank you.
All right, so we will look at adding a revisit clause, and that sounds like that's about all we're seeing on the social media policy that we want to look at between now and the next meeting.
No, I think currently.
Yeah, okay. All right, so it'll come back for a second reading, and, if something huge comes up, then it'll come back for a third reading. Thank you, Jonah. All right. We're getting toward the end, aren't we? All right, set the municipal tax rate.
Yes, you have in your packet a memorandum outlining the calculated tax rates which were impacted by a combination of the approved budgets and anticipated revenues from other sources. For the general fund, we're looking at an increase of 5.08 cents, bringing the total general fund tax rate to 92.86 cents. The highway fund is projected to increase 2.01 cents to 49.62 cents. And the fire fund will decrease approximately 0.04 of a cent to 9.24 cents. The total new tax rate for those who are affected by the General Highway and Fire Fund of Bennington would be $1.51, It's a total increase of 6.61 cents. That is somewhat less than what we projected when we presented our budget to you, which was a 5.2% increase based on last year's grand list. So this is impacted by a couple of things. We did see a small growth in the grand list this year, and we do also see a slight increase in some of our anticipated revenues. So the combined effect of both of those is to reduce the projected increase to what you have before you, and I would be looking for a motion to approve the tax rates as presented.
Someone want to make that motion?
So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the rate as the chairman, as the manager has proposed, with the rate of increase equaling 4.56% for those that are affected by all three fund items.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Yeah, just a quick question, Stu. Page 2,
Yes.
is that on every tax bill, or is that something we have added in?
The Bennington local school agreement is something that we have added in because we basically bill for the school taxes, and we turn the money over to them.
So that's been in there every year?
Yes,
Okay,
that has been there every year.
Other questions? Comments? All right. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Please say nay. All right. No abstentions, right? Okay. Ayes have it, Nancy. All right, thank you. Listening sessions.
Yes, here again, the chair directed me to take a look at the fire facility calendar, which is the calendar that governs the use of this room, to see when we might be able to pull together some listening sessions. And looking ahead 4 months, we are coming up on the crunch time for the Bennington Battle Day planning, so this facility and this room may be used quite often by fire department planners as they get ready for the Battle Day celebration. So looking ahead, Wednesdays seems to be the evening that is most often free. And I am recommending, if the board agrees, that Wednesday, August 21st would be the first listening session, beginning at 6 p.m. and running to 7 p.m. The time frame is really up to the board to determine. The facility on the second, third, and fourth Wednesdays of a given month is generally open for scheduling from 4 p.m. until 8 p.m. But I don't know how long your listening sessions would need to last, but I think we generally start our meetings at 6, so that's where the recommended start time comes from.
Great, and you're also...
I'm looking to go every other month, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't finish my thought there. Just so that we can gauge the effectiveness of the listening sessions, and that would be a gauge that you folks would determine as you go through these processes.
All right, and my understanding is that the purpose of doing this is to see if a different day, a slightly different setting, I mean, it's still a public meeting, if that would bring in additional different people and maybe foster a more open conversation. Is that, Clark, is that what you're thinking?
Well, that's what I've heard from folks, that they'd like a greater opportunity to be heard in a less structured area that, you and I, no one knows what everybody in this town is thinking, but I really want to give people an opportunity to come to the board, explain their concerns or get their questions answered. And more importantly, I just want people to understand that we're here to listen and hopefully address their concerns in a positive, transparent manner.
Super.
So if I may.
Sure.
Clark, you were the catalyst behind this. Does this structure meet the the goal that you were looking at least at the onset here? Are we on the right track?
Well, I don't want to take credit for being a catalyst. It's just, I would say I'm more of a vector for what people said. And as I say to Jeannie and Stuart, what I really want to do is give people an option. We're going to start off, said every other month, that's fine. If we're sitting here looking at an empty room for 3 hours for 2 months, I can honestly look at people who address me on the streets or bring up things that you had a chance, you didn't show up. We can't just go on open-ended, wouldn't look like a response. But if people of Bennington show up and fill this room and we find we can't answer or address their issues, that one day that tells us we need to spend more time with them. So I'm hoping we can give the people of Bennington the opportunity to basically get involved in their community and let their voices be heard and respond to those voices. And if the voices aren't there, which I hope won't happen, we can move from there. But I want no one to be able to say, hey, nobody was listening. I never heard a chance to say anything. Well, I want to give people that chance, and I want to hear it. I want to hear what they have to say. I'm not making promises, and I don't expect anybody on the board to make promises, but I promise that I will listen.
Understood. Thank you.
So then, shall we direct our town manager to draw up a schedule that's every other month for August for four listening sessions, and then you'll make sure that it goes out at the usual public notice?
Yep. We'll do that.
All right. Do we want?
Can we? I have a conflict the second Wednesday of every month, so I'm wondering if we could choose based on our own schedules.
This is third.
I know, but going forward, is it going to be the third Wednesday?
I would. My goal would be to set it at the same day of the week every time, so that people know when the meetings are coming.
Okay, so
the third Wednesday.
The third Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay, that's better. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So not the second, and we know Energy Committee meets on the first Wednesday. So okay.
And Rescue meets on a Wednesday too, Clark.
I understand that,
but it was the 4th, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. There's too many
I'll have to look, but you're right. I think it is the 4th.
We actually did. We actually did play with this. Okay. So all right. So you're on this. All right.
I'm on it.
All right. Are we all in agreement? Do you want a motion, or do you want just a nod?
Excuse me.
As long as we have a nod. Yes. We have public comment. Okay.
I just wanted to bring up that
Could tell us who you are, please?
River down to Bennington. You guys forgot to do a public discussion for the Select Board of Rules and Procedures. I just wanted to remind you guys. So
it was only a first reading, so we have the opportunity.
Yeah, and you guys said for a public discussion about any concerns. And
I'm sorry, and it is because it's really late.
Yeah, and I just wanted to let you guys know.
Thank you for bringing that up. One thing that you could do, if you would like, is to email, if you can email your thoughts to me, then I will share that. We can put it, right, can we add that to the, we can add that?
We can
add to the minutes in some way?
It wouldn't be added to the minutes until the next meeting.
Yeah, but we could add, so we could put it in the public record. So if you can email us your thoughts, because that would be very helpful. Yeah, if you can email us your thoughts, that would be super.
Is there a specific person like Stu Hurd or?
I think to me.
All right.
So Jay Jenkins. At benningtonvt.org.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and I apologize. Okay, yes, our best thinking does not happen at this time of night. I am like, okay, so, all right, so listening session, that's going forward, that's all great.
We didn't vote, I don't think, or did we need to
Well, I think
vote?
we just decided we weren't getting a motion. Okay, we're just.
I just wanted to say do you remember when we were working on the whole CPAR process and we had those comment boards? And I was shocked on how many people responded. So if it's something additional that we could do to solicit comments rather than making people come to a meeting, we should probably do that.
That's a great idea. That was so effective.
It was, I was shocked how many people took the time to do that.
We did give a prompt, so we did give a prompt to those, so maybe what we can do is think about that and talk about it the next.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be that methodology. It could be just
Yeah.
another way for people to participate, other than coming to a listening session.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. Absolutely great idea. Okay, all right, so let's think about that. All right. Okay, Stuart, manager's report.
Yeah, this is going to be really brief. I just wanted to address a question that Nancy had asked, and I told her I would include it in the manager's report. Recently, we sold the 1997 ladder truck. We had held on to it for a couple of years, hoping that we would get a good price for it. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, there was no market for the truck. We were spending money every year to insure it and maintain it, because if we ever did sell it, we wanted to be able to say that the ladders and everything and the pumps were certified. So we've been maintaining this truck for quite some time. The fire chiefs approached the chief of police and really encouraged him to find a way to get this vehicle moved on. So we used an opportunity called Auctions International. We have used it before for other pieces of equipment that we couldn't find a market for locally, but you put it out there, people, if they're interested, they will bid on it, and you generally can move things such as old vehicles and used equipment fairly easily. In this case, oddly enough, the high bid for the vehicle was from a small town in New Jersey for $11,000. And the fire department chiefs and the chief of police agreed that that was the best price that we have been offered for this vehicle in the 2 years we've held on to it, and recommended that it be sold to this community, which we did. So that is the tale of the 1997 ladder truck sale. Not as much money as we'd hoped to get, but certainly it was becoming a problem for us. And the rest is stuff you've already known about. The work on the bridge on Morgan Street is heading forward. The road is closed. I think we'll be seeing some demolition of the old abutments or the old bridge taking place. Oddly enough, the water was a little higher than we had hoped, and that has slowed the process. And I understand from the National Weather Service that we may be seeing some severe weather Wednesday and Thursday, possibly rain again, heavy rains. So that may slow us down as well. But that project is underway. It is being designed and built by our staff. Estimated savings to the town, approximately $180,000. Yay. It's fantastic.
Amazing.
Nice to know that we have the personnel that can do this.
Amazing.
It's real money.
Couple questions on the truck.
Sure thing.
Were we trying to actively sell it last year?
Yes.
And it was advertised on a regular basis, or how did we advertise it? Do you remember?
I think we were working through the ladder truck contractors. I can't tell you for sure, Nancy, but yes, the truck has been out there. It's been advertised. When we bought the new truck, the company that was selling us the new truck was not interested in a trade. At that time, we thought we could get more money for it, so we were feeling pretty comfortable about it, but we just couldn't move it.
Because I look back at the minutes that they said they were only selling for 45 to 50, and we were asking 125. Would we have taken something, was that a minimum bid, or could we have taken less last year?
I really don't, I am not involved in the individual details between the various fire chiefs as they've looked to move this truck. So all I have is what I have before you now.
And do you know this year when it went on the auction site, was it just 30 days? Did we have it on a couple of months?
Auctions International has a very specific, once you put it up, there is a very specific bid time. I don't know what that is. I don't know how it's established. But the bid is open for a very specific time, and then it closes. And I don't think it's a very long time frame.
Or just maybe we ought to look into it or think about a policy. What several people were saying to me is they thought it went for, way too little. I said, I don't know enough about it, but somebody thought it was only on the site for 30 days, and I said, well, maybe we should have kept it on 90 days.
Yeah, I don't know the rules for
But I mean, that might be something we need to look at, because $11,000. Could we have written that off and donated that?
Towns don't benefit by donations. I mean, donating, we get no value for the donation.
Okay, all right.
A private individual who donates can take a tax deduction for that donation. Municipalities don't get that benefit. So I'd rather get $11,000.
No, but I just wish, you knew you had 11, he wasn't going to get a truck cheaper. I just wonder if we'd had it out for another month or two.
Well, it's a good question, Nancy. I don't know the workings of Auctions International. I rely on my folks to run that, but I'll try to find out.
Okay.
And that's really all I have.
Thank you. Any other questions on the manager's report?
Thank you, Stu.
Working on my microphone. It says here it would be $200,000 for the Downtown Transportation Fund for the Walloomsac Riverwalk project. They received that. When was that grant issued?
Dan, can you speak to the?
Yeah, that was.
That was the lighting, wasn't it?
That was the Downtown Transportation Fund. $200,000 was for the skate park.
Oh, okay.
And we announced that a few months ago. But remember, this is very compressed fundraising, so it wasn't that long ago, but it was probably 2 months ago. I can't recall, but it was very relatively recently, and that was and the board was fully aware of that application and that award.
Right, just $200,000 seems to be a popular denomination in funding, and like one says here for Walloomsac Riverwalk Improvement Project, and then down below that, there's $200,000 for the skate park.
Right,
My question was, when was the Walloomsac River Improvement Project monies received?
That may have been 3 years ago. Does that ring a bell? It was a couple years ago at least.
Is this the funds for the improved lighting?
Yeah, this was for the lighting and the improvement to the Riverwalk. Yeah.
But it just struck me as odd because there's no date. You're saying 3 years ago, so it's just now showing up on the report that. Oh, so it's a recurrent entry. It's not a new entry.
Right. Yeah, this is an update on because we're continuing to work on that project. It remains in the report.
That's a good point.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Upcoming agendas. All right. So we have ECDC coming for 15 minutes for Ethiopian Community Development Council. GBIX is coming to give a general update and also to talk about the remote area medical team is coming again in August, which was phenomenally successful last year. They brought a dental, medical, and vision team. People walked away with glasses. They got their dental work done. It was amazing. So they will talk about that and opportunities to volunteer. We have the slate, right? At the next meeting, we'll have the slate for the Charter Review Board, and then we have the second reading for both the procedures and policy. And if we want to talk about comment boards or adding anything to the listening session, we could do that, or we could also hold that and talk at the listening session with folks about that. So that's a question. Anything else we need to talk about?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right, so it should be a much shorter meeting.
Are we going to talk about the laws the legislature passed with?
It's included.
State mandates, no local funding. I'm looking for the price. Are we hiring a new person, or a lot of paperwork with that?
I don't think we have a new person in mind at this point.
You think, I'm not sure everything they did, but it sounds like an awful lot of work.
I'll just look to Dan to this burden and type it in.
But are we going to talk publicly so people know what's going on? Or?
Well, we can, yes, if you, we can, I'll try to.
Well, I'd like to understand recording the meetings and how we're going to store them, what are we going to store them on, and people need to understand there will be, I think there's going to be an ethic board, and we're all going to be held accountable.
Well, we are already.
So with regard to the new open meeting requirements, Jonah has already put together a draft protocol, and we are following the law, and we will continue to do so. So if you wanted to have more in-depth discussion about that, I'm sure Jonah could discuss the protocol that we've developed.
So we're continuing with CAT TV, everything's this.
For now, we're continuing with CAT TV, that's correct. CAT TV does do the recordings. We take their recordings and post them on our website. They have their own YouTube site, so we are definitely in compliance with that particular requirement.
And the remote meetings, when does that start, this year or next year?
So remote meetings are not required, but for instance, if Nancy, you were out of town and you requested a remote access, we would facilitate that under the law.
But I thought I saw something we have to do for the public, or no?
No, it is only done if it's specifically requested for a single meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll pull Jonah's protocol and put it into the manager's report so we can.
Oh, that's a great idea. Thank you. Thank you.
What do you think of any panels?
Can you hear any better? Yes? Yes.
I think it's dulled it down. Of course, we didn't have.
Why, did you do something in here?
If you look into the ceilings, you will see white panels.
It's underwhelming, yes.
No, I was going to say, actually, I could hear tonight, kind of.
And dulled it down a lot.
Oh, that's great.
Very good. What the contractor did was he came here and he did a reverberation testing, and from the various corners of the room, and came up with this plan to, and it dampens the reverberation. The other thing he recommended that we do is we modify our current sound panels to make them more soundproof. These blue panels were all installed on the walls to reduce the echoing. They're not as good as they could be. So we're going to take a look at that and see if our own folks can.
Do you think it made a difference tonight?
I do. I mean, there's still room for improvement. Because
Always, right? Always.
Well, that's good.
Okay.
I think so too.
Yeah.
All right, so then maybe if we do something with the blue panels.
It would be even better.
Now we just need people to talk in the back of the room while we're trying to have a meeting
Exactly.
to see
And then we'll see.
if it works this
Yeah,
way.
that's right, that's right. Okay, all right, any other business? Nancy?
Yeah, one of the handouts I got in the packet, I'm sure Clark got it too, back in March, basic function of the select board, and it's going over the different, when I see SVSU, town manager, assistant town manager, SVSU administrators, and up to 3 members of the select board meet quarterly to share information.
This was Tom and I met with Clark and Nancy for a training when you were first elected. So so I gave you a copy of our notes.
But it sounds like this is still going on?
Not for a while.
Oh, no, we haven't met quarterly. But we do meet with the superintendent of the Southwest Tech as well, and some of his staff.
It's her. Meg is the new superintendent of Southwest Tech.
Okay, who was meeting?
It's generally 3 select board members, manager, assistant manager, and our community development director when it's appropriate. Those are generally the people that represent the town.
Well, there's 7 of us here, and if there's going to be a meeting like that, we should all have the option of going?
You will, Nancy.
No,
You're only allowed to have 3.
You mean
can
all
only have
7?
3.
No, we can't have a quorum. No, it's not a warned meeting.
There are only 3 people that can attend, and
I realize that, and I don't like the idea of that at all.
Well, this is
I
really
can't help
not
you,
this is not
Look, this
appropriate
is-
here. So we can continue that conversation later, but
Okay, it says basics functions of the select board. I never had any idea they were doing that.
There's no decision-making, it's just a sharing of information. There's nothing official, there's no official action, it's just, they just share information, that's all it is.
It actually began while Sean Marie Oler was chair of the SVSU board, and it was to increase communication between the town and the SVSU for things like when a bridge is going to be out, and the DU4 bus service needs to know that so that they don't try and pick up kids going over a bridge that's closed, or when we're doing road work, or, you know, it's a functional meeting.
Budget info, union negotiations, building repairs, I mean.
Yeah, we share all of that information.
And do the other towns do this too?
Well, and at one time, Nancy, we also shared that information collectively at the annual town meeting. The SVSU, Bennington School Districts presented their slideshow at the same time we did, so that people at our town meeting could see how the two town and the school were affecting one another.
I thought the legislatures used to do this with the school system. I didn't know we had some of our people sitting behind closed doors.
Yes. Well, the doors are open.
Doors are open. Doors are open. It's a good thing, good exchange of information.
Yeah, if you win, yeah. And it's information that you know, because we already know the bridge is closed, but believe it or not, the SVSU administration doesn't always watch the select board meetings, just as we don't always watch the SVSU meetings. So it's a way to make sure that
That's a good point, Jeannie. It's typically information that has been shared in open meetings at this board or that board.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, anything else, the contract negotiations is, we're in contract negotiations. Yeah. It's not details. So it's not behind closed doors, and it's a way to make sure that the right hand knows what the left hand is doing in terms of making sure the community functions well. All right.
Do we have a motion?
Anything else, Sarah?
I don't have anything.
Okay.
I have nothing.
Okay.
I have nothing official, although Shirley and I are going to be out of town, going to Montana to visit our granddaughter after the next meeting, and we won't be back in town till just before the following meeting in August, so.
Can you just tell me, when are you going to be here for our interviews?
We take off on the 22nd of July.
Oh, okay, okay, fine.
And we'll be back probably the 10th or the 11th of August.
Okay, so you're missing a meeting? Or
no, it sounds like you're going to be out between meetings.
I can't.
Wait, well, I just wanted to, as a heads up, so to speak.
You're out between.
Yeah, just in case something happens where you want to get us together, I won't be available.
Okay, all right. I'm hoping that after we finish this out.
Right, well, you know how things go.
Okay, thank you. Yep. Jean?
I do have two quick things. So I don't know, Stu, who put in the word search, but I want the person who did this to know that I did it and I truly enjoyed it. And I just finished it. I missed one. I just did it now. And someone I know, I'm not going to say his name, Stu, this is also for you to pass on. This person was so impressed with the work that's happening on Safford Street, and he really wanted me to announce that he was very, very impressed with the work that's going on, and to pass that on to whoever is responsible.
Thank you.
Positive feedback. Yay.
We have a very talented crew. There's no question.
That's all.
Great.
Thank you.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I will second that.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Okay, that's everybody, right? Okay, thank you.
My God, that may be